All right, we're live. We're back again to talk about some more Wheel of Time TV series. We're going to talk about episode 7 here. And here today it's myself, Woke Centrist, aka Washington Centrist, aka Twisted Cubes. And we got here Tristram, aka Mask. And hopefully, in a little bit of time, we'll have Andrew, aka Mindgasms, on later as usual. But man, so I guess the first thing we got to talk about is that cold open.
Yeah, let's
Uh,
please talk about that.
I was I was floored. I was like, wow, this is just completely amazing. I was not
Did
expecting a fight
did you
scene
watch it
that
on
long.
Everyday Negroes?
Yes,
Did
I
you watch
watched
the
the
reaction of
reaction to
Everyday
it
Negroes?
too. Yeah.
I love that. They're like, if this is Rand's mom, he's got to completely live up to this. Not like live up to being like maybe a fated dragon. He's got to live up to this woman because she's a freaking frost ninja. And it's just like amazing. I did
Yeah,
not
so
expect it. I did not expect it. That's for sure.
well, I didn't know it was going to be her. I know they had teased some type of
Oh,
IEL fight.
as soon as I didn't know that, but as soon as you see that she's pregnant in the
Yeah,
blood
that's the
snow,
clue.
you know it has to be, right? Yeah,
Right, because we
yeah.
know like the
So,
prophecy
yeah,
and what's supposed to happen.
yeah, we've read the books, right? So,
Yeah. So
um,
the fight scene is quite long. It's longer than I expected. So this whole cold open is almost 5 minutes long, and the
yeah,
most of it is spent fighting.
they just knew people would love it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I guess they
you
just
want
knew
to
people would enjoy
explain?
it, so they're like, yeah.
So just to let you guys know, this is going to be spoiler filled, and when I say spoiler filled, we're gonna
Yeah,
talk about how it relates to the books, and then I don't know how far we'll talk about spoilers, but you better believe that we could probably talk up until the last book here. I'm not going to say specifically this episode, but in the future.
yeah. So just be
So
prepared.
who?
Like we're not careful.
All right. So who do you suspect she was fighting here?
So it looks like it's the blood snow, and because of the armor, it looks like because we know that there was a coalition fighting the Aiel at the blood snow, which included um, lots of Karainen and Dorans, but it also included like people from the south. And so one of the things that we see here is that the armor that they have Tam wearing at the end of the scene is clearly Illyana armor. It has the nine
Hmm.
bees. So, and all the others were wearing the same uniforms as him. And so it's unlikely that they would re have issued a coalition armor. So the implication is that these are Ilian are part of the force that have this particular squad have run across a Nail after the main battle has broken up. It looks like she's obviously a remnant, and then they see a Nail dressed and still veiled for war. They naturally assume that this is one of the enemy, and try and kill that enemy while they're resting. Probably not realizing that she's actually in the process of starting to give birth, and then like in a moment of fictional wish fulfillment, this crazy woman while pregnant then kicks the butt of like with ninja like moves of like six like trained soldiers who by and one of the things this establishes, I don't mind it though, because one of the things that we know about the Aiel is they are rock hard. They're portrayed in the books as being able to fight and move in a way that no one in the wetlands can. And it's also made quite clear in the books that if the Aiel decided to all like just get together, march over the mountains and kick the trash of the Westlands, that they would just win, flat out win. And that is, I think that's made abundantly clear in the books. And so obviously we've not got long here in this show. So this is the first time we get to see an Aiel fight. We've seen a dead one in a cage. And what Rafe shows us here is, like, you do not mess with the Aiel. They are badass fighters. He also very quickly establishes that amongst the Aiel, women fighting is no big deal. It is normal. I love the fact he has the Aiel dressed properly. I love the fact that she's veiled. I love the fact that she fights with spears, and it shows that they're short spears for stabbing and throwing. Even though it's like a little bit suspension of disbelief, because if you've had a pregnant wife, even if she's someone who's quite physically fit, you'll know that there's no leaping through the sky and pirouetting and stabbing spears to someone in the middle of as you begin birth pains. That just, yeah, you got to suspend disbelief there, guys. But the coolness of it, of being able to say, here's a woman who's going through incredible pain, but she's such a badass that even still she can take out like 6 armed and armored warriors is pretty freaking awesome. And it was so great to watch that the rule of cool won it for me. And she is meant to have been fighting in that battle. She is meant to give birth then. That does fit with the story. So I give this cold open my blessing because it's freaking awesome. But yeah, it isn't maybe fully like believable, but neither are the ways or Moraine or magic. So I'm not gonna like have a problem. It was cool. Did you enjoy it, Dusty? Surely you enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think it's basically one of my favorite cold openings so far. I was actually showing this scene to somebody that's unfamiliar with the series and unfamiliar with the show, with the books. He's like a complete noob. And that my basic, what I was trying to do with that scene was to convince him that this is a good show.
Yeah.
So when I showed this to him, he's like, "Wow, this is like really high budget." And he said, "This is like a TV show." I'm like, "Yeah, Amazon's spending a lot of money on this show." So yeah, it's very high budget. Yeah, and he's like, "Yeah, this looks really cool, almost like a Game of Thrones." I was like, "Yeah, man, you should check it out and let me know what you think." And he's like, "Yeah, let me write this down. What's the name of the show?" So that cold open totally got him interested in pursuing watching the show. And I think there were a lot of people like naysayers as well that were saying, "Yay, finally Rafe does something good." It's just like,
but
okay, guys, so hard to
but it's
please.
I think it's very in line. I don't think this is like weird and not like Rafe. I think this is what Rafe's been doing throughout. Like, again, it's a scene we don't see in the books. And I think one of the things that Rafe is doing as a fan, and I truly believe that Rafe is the fan he claims to be, is one of the things that Rafe has done is he's gone, right, I know I can't do the books with what I've got. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the story. I'm going to be true to the characters. And what I'm going to do is take the advantage of the fact that I can't do the books word for word and show loads of scenes that you don't get to see. We saw that with Winter's Night, and now we're seeing that here. Like, we know this scene happens, the birth on Dragamount. We know Tam was there. We know he picked up the child. We know that like it was in the end of an awful battle and all this stuff. We never get to see it in the books. And Rafe's like, hee, I can do it, so I'm gonna. And he does a great job of it. And I think he did a great job with Winter's Night as well.
Right. Yeah, I thought it was tremendous. He did a really a good service to the series, and basically, for me, it's something I can show other people that might get them interested in it.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, because it's such a spectacular thing. This pregnant woman taking on a bunch of guys and just
Yeah.
wrecking their days. And then she
And
does get stabbed, which is pretty shocking as well.
yeah, because then you're like, you're gonna die. And but also like the way like it's self-contained, right? That's one of the cool things
Hmm.
about showing this to someone is it's almost like a trailer because And one of the things I would say is we've seen cool action scenes before, but it's quite cool that this is different. One of the things that is really different about it is actually the fact that she's not using a sword. Like the
Mhm.
spear is an unusual weapon to see highlighted in movies, right? Especially the short
Right.
spear. And so it's quite cool. It's like something we haven't seen much of, and they really use it well, don't they? Like they explore how
Mhm.
you would use a spear in combat. And like there's a guy who does medieval combat stuff on YouTube called Shadiversity. I like to watch some of his stuff. And one of the things he likes to do is look at scenes from TV shows and films and go, is this realistic? And like one of the things he does is he says, like, in reality, a lot of people would have been using spears when we see them use swords, especially like in medieval warfare, because the spear could just do so much. But in
Mhm.
modern pop culture, we prefer swords. So we just everyone's got swords. And so it's really interesting. I would love to see someone like that do a breakdown of why the short spear could be an extremely effective weapon, and especially in the hands of a woman, for example, because of the additional reach, which is often one of the disadvantages of being a female fighter. And so I
Mhm.
think that was, and she used that really well. Like used the extended reach to outgun their swords and like kill them before they even could get into striking distance, and use the speed of being unarmored and wielding a spear over the armored, helmed, heavy metal sword troops, which I thought was a really good way of helping me suspend my disbelief. I think
Mhm.
the combat choreographer did a great job. It did have that dance like aspect. It looked beautiful. It was impactful, but it was also like a really emotional scene, right? Like if she's
Right.
trying to give birth and she's gonna die and she's clearly cold. So that's one of the reasons I think it really fit that, like you said, almost like a hey, watch this. Just if you want to see what the shows can do, look at this,
Yeah,
because
there's
you
so
get a
many
lot in one
layers
go.
going on in this
Yep.
in this so yeah, my coworker found it so compelling. He was asking so many additional questions about
Yep.
what was going on. So I basically had to explain what the war was about and
Yeah.
explain a little bit about how the Carrion disrespected the Isles gift and turning it into
Oh
a
yeah.
throne, and they came back to assassinate him. And it was only like what like a fifth of the Aiel
Yeah.
clans.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
three.
It wasn't all the clans. Yeah. Just three, but like three full clans is still a pretty big number. But like when the Westland lands talk about it, they talk about it as if the Aiel were like trying to invade and take them over, and the Aiel were just
Hmm.
coming to execute someone who they felt had acted poorly. It was just a police action.
Yeah, it's like let's get that guy. We're not here to wage a
Because he's
war. We're just
dishonorable.
here to kill somebody.
Yeah, to bring someone to
um,
justice, for being dishonorable, and like it's because they don't care about conquering. It's not their way,
mm-hmm.
but their entire way of life is misunderstood in the Westlands, which is like a big part of IE in the series. By the way, you know when I was talking to you about the way I pronounce things in my head, and then
uh,
learning how they're really pronounced. So I always
yeah,
called them ale when I was younger.
ale,
Ale and Ailman, and then it's Aiel and
ailment.
Aielman. So that's another one that was like a big one that I just pronounced differently, and I still have to try and make myself say Aiel. Anyway,
Mm.
we should crack on to this episode because there's a lot in it.
All right, so next scene, um,
Yep.
it's basically starts right after the last episode where
Yep.
they are separating from Matt, it looks like,
Yep. And they
and they have
argue
entered. Go ahead.
and they argue straight away. And again, this is somewhat frustrating to someone like me because, but it makes sense in the purpose of the show, because we know in the purpose of the show that one of the reasons Matt has been left is because of an actor action rather than the plot. And so, like Matt not coming, it's very clear if you watch the last episode that Matt chooses not to come. The door is
Hmm.
open He could walk through it. No one stops him coming through it, and he refuses to walk through it. Like, and it's clear from our point of view that's because Barney Harris left the project.
Right.
But and in the books he doesn't do that. Now, so for me, at first when this argument started happening, I found myself getting frustrated because it felt like a waste of time. But then I said to myself, Tristram, in this version of the story, if they didn't talk about this now, it would be completely unrealistic. Like for them, this is a massive tearing apart. But I've got to say that the whole "you've dumped Matt" argument just seems so childish and petty and so clearly provably false that I am surprised that anyone even makes that argument. Like maybe you made Fat Matt feel unwelcome, or we should have held the gate open longer or something. Maybe. But the whole "you abandoned Matt" just feels so. It really did feel petty and weak and teenagery. But to be fair, Rand is sometimes weak and petty and teenagery. But I'm so glad that someone in the character list said, no, he left us, like flatly, and just
Right.
made that comment. Because I think a lot of the audience were like screaming that at the TV. Like,
Yeah.
don't be Philip. So I'm glad that someone kind of brought that up.
Yeah, and then Lan makes a really good point to Nynaeve, who feels a strong protective need. Because she's wisdom, she feels she needs to protect everybody.
Yep. And
And
that's
with
her
Matt, she
character.
feels, yeah, she totally failed. And then Lan reassures her, he's going to be safer out there than with us.
Yeah,
You don't have to worry about him. And he's pretty much right.
for sure.
Oasis is not the safest of places. And if Matt is out there, he's not facing the current danger that they're going through or they're about to go through.
Agreed.
So let's talk about the ways. How'd you like the look of it?
I'm okay with the ways. One of the things that is like I love the fact that it like anywhere where there was not a direct torch, you could not see. Like that is
Hmm.
good. That is right. It feels like the ways. It feels claustrophobic, even though there is empty space. I wish that we'd had a wide shot that just showed like these bony ridges moving through the sky and like showing the huge wide expansion, almost like pulling out in Moria when they do that in
Hmm.
the Lord of the Rings. And but they don't really do that. But then I said to myself, but there's a reason they don't do that. They want this place to feel close, claustrophobic, and so it's okay. And you do get to see that it's literally floating in the sky. I thought it was. I didn't expect it to look exactly like it looks, but I don't have a problem with it. I think it looks pretty cool. Do you know what it reminded me of from our own world? Is
Oh
do you
yeah,
know what
it's
the Giant's Causeway?
yeah, it's
Uh,
basalt deposits that look kind of
yeah,
hexagonal.
yeah.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of that because I went after I watched this episode. I went online and people were talking about, hey, this looks like a basalt rock formations, and then I did some googling, and then that's one of the
Yeah,
things that came up was the Giant's Causeway.
yeah. It's like absolutely. And one of the things that's amazing about that is when you see it, it looks almost man-made, but it's absolutely not. It's entirely natural, and that
Yeah,
is pretty freaking
that's what's
cool.
crazy about it. Yeah,
Yeah, because when you look at it, you're
used to,
like, why do people make a big deal of this? And then you realize that just is there, like, created by the hand of the planet, if you like. And like that is pretty freaking cool. And so I like that. Like it helps it feel maybe a little bit more real, a bit more grounded, even though it's in
hmm
this magic world. So it doesn't look like I imagined it to look, but I think it's a good look. I think the darkness is handled very well, that it feels cloying and close. And I love how they use that to demonstrate Perrin's eyes.
Oh
I
yes,
love
that's
that
right.
moment. That was like one of my favorite moments because it's just subtle, right? He's just, hey, look at what's that up ahead, and then you think, how did he see that? And that's cool because that is kind of the kind of thing that the book does as Perrin starts to change. is that he's like, ooh, I can see better and I can smell better, and and like it's very, very gradual, and that is cool. That is brilliant. I love that. That is is good character building. It's good power development. Um, and you'll notice that I'm a big fan of gradual, like big
Mhm.
fan of that. And that, like, my one big problem with this episode, which we'll get to later, is the lack of gradualness. But anyway, I love that moment, and I think the guiding looked cool, and the Trolloc damage looked Trollocky, you know. So I was a big fan of all of that.
Yeah, so I did check out the behind the scenes
Mm.
about the ways, and there's actually a really practical reason why they picked that basalt type of look, and it's
Mm.
because they actually use the hexagonal structures to reconfigure the set on a sound stage. So they were able to mix and match pieces and create different parts of the waves
Oh,
just
cool.
by interlocking those like hexagonal pieces.
And they
So
could
that
just
it
do it in
was like
so
a
many different
real,
ways.
yeah, it's like they were like playing
Yeah.
Minecraft with like some pieces there and just put the waves together in a bunch of different configurations on a. I think they said
Yep.
the stage was like maybe a little less than 100 yards long.
But they can just constantly recreate. Yeah, I get that. Like that's really clever. Like reusing set pieces to save the budget, but still having something that feels huge and expansive. That's very clever.
Right. So some of the things that happened in the way. So we did get
Yep.
a peek at Perrin's sight. He could see in
Yep.
the dark, and they asked him how he did that and all that. Um,
Yep.
so something important. So a Trolloc pops up. So that answers a question that they had been having, like how did the Trollocs get to the two rivers? And finally, they have a pretty good conclusion to that.
Yes.
That hey, that's this is how they got there, which would explain like the defacing of that guide stone.
Yep.
So, did you want to talk about the show's
So,
incarnation of Ma Shin or
just one last thing. I
sure?
about the Trolloc thing. Like that's really cool. That they like demonstrated that we needed that. I would have liked something like, huh? Not only should the Trollocs not be here, but they should be like scared because Mashing Shin kills them too. Just like a
Hmm.
throwaway line like that to show that like the ways are a bit like Shadow Lagoth. Like they're not like the tools of the Dark One. The ways kill Trollocs just like they kill anybody. And like so it's
Hmm.
scary for the Trollocs to be here. Like maybe someone's guiding them through. They couldn't just get through on their own. There must be a fade with them, or there must be someone.
Well, there is
Like
one clue. There is a clue.
yeah,
You hear the whistle.
you do hear the whistle, and I would have, but I would have liked Moraine to just drop that line, like, "Huh, Trollocs on the ways. There must be something leading them through." And she could have just left it at that. But yeah, that whistle is there a couple of times. But so I am fan with that. But one of the other things I think we need to mention about the Trolloc, which I think is important, is the Trolloc gets blasted by the one power. Yeah,
Hmm.
and
Yeah. So I rewatched that scene,
yeah,
and it's actually truncated. So
you
the
can't see
scene that we
properly.
see later, we see more of
Yes.
a fuller picture. But that scene that happens right there in the very beginning, you actually don't get to see all that really happens there.
Correct. On
And it's not
purpose.
that people didn't catch it, it's that when they edited that first scene, you
They
can't
don't show
see.
you.
Yeah, you can't see it. I was
And
like,
but
hmm.
there's an explosion of the one power, and then just like a good magician, Rafe throws a distraction by having Egwene say, "I didn't mean to channel." So Egwene's
Right,
assuming because it came from her area that without meaning to, she has had like a wilder channel. But
right.
obviously we'll find out later it wasn't her. But one of the things we got told right at the beginning is don't channel in the ways, it draws Ma Shin. And I don't think, again, it's a thing that only works because the episode makes it work, is like they haven't explained Ma Shin. And like that doesn't make sense. I'm gonna let it go, obviously, because it's a ploy. But like, in like books when they go, let's go, and like, just tell me, like, well, we don't have time, and then they run or drive away for half an hour in a chase scene. They could be talking that entire time, explaining the situation, but don't, because they want the book reader not to have the answers. And it always feels very contrived, and that's how not explaining Ma Shin felt here, because okay, you might not explain it when you first walk into the ways and they ask, but you've now been walking for like half an hour, 2 days, or whatever. What? Why is no one explaining Ma Shin? And so anyway, just saying, I don't think that's the best storytelling. I think they could have explained Ma Shin and still had it feel dangerous. I would have just done it, or had no one ask and no one bring it up. So I just don't think that's great storytelling. But then they do mention that using the power draws it. So that's cool, because then that pays off here, because they use the power, and anyone who remembers the previous line is like, right, there's now going to be this Ma Shin thing's going to come for sure. Like that's what they set up, and then they pay that off.
Well, Loial tries to explain it a little bit. He just says it's the black wind and it's gonna like take your soul or something like that. It's a very short explanation.
This is at this point, like this, but they've already been in the ways for it anyway. But then when he doesn't explain, he's like, it's black wind, it's bad, and then like she says, what is that exactly? Like, you haven't told us. And then Moiraine just like, don't listen to it. Blah. Anyway, I'm not impressed. But anyway, I'm fine with the visuals. I think the visuals look cool. It's hard to show black on black, so they go with a kind of gray feel. But it's also hard to show the wind, right? Because the wind isn't really visible. So I think for the fact that it's something really difficult to show, I think they show it really well. I love the fact that they do a striding edge moment where you have like a thin piece of rock, which is clearly walkable, but just knowing that there's like, they didn't do anything stupid, like have it be like a tightrope, but just knowing that you're walking with just literally no barriers on either side and you can just die. There's some people who would just not have been crossing that, which was really cool. I think that was good fear factor, but also quite realistic. And then, of course, Moiraine's trying to channel to open the gate, and you hear all the voices, and I like that as well. I thought that was pretty good.
Yes, I know a lot of people took umbrage with Nynaeve's channeling in this case.
Yeah, that she just channeled again,
but it seems like there's a couple different scenarios in which she'll channel, and that's usually to protect. And we do know in the books, like, Nynaeve doesn't really know what she's doing. It's just an instinctual outburst, and that happens throughout the first few books. Like, she just does things. Like, she does Balefire, and she doesn't really know how to.
She isn't. Yeah, and it's shown that it's instinctual here. Like, she isn't controlling that. She's just wanting to protect people, and it just happens. I think that's. I'm going to give them a pass on that for sure, because it doesn't look like she's like, I'm going to carefully construct this weave. She's just unleashing her power in a desperate effort, and she's in fear. She's angry that it's going to maybe kill them. It's saying nasty things in her mind, and she just lashes out.
Yeah.
So I think that's quite.
That's what I thought was.
I think that did look wild.
Yeah, that's what I thought was super interesting. Is that Ma Shin, all it did was piss her off. So it did like the exact wrong thing that it needed to do, which is like to make her scared and doubt herself. No, it just made her mad. And you don't want to like Nynaeve is the Hulk. You don't want to make her mad. That's when she's at her
Yeah.
strongest.
And the thing is,
um,
again, with Nynaeve, I think some people would react with they just crumple up. But what Nynaeve does is when she feels like crumpling up, she lashes out, right? That is her character. You know.
right. So, man, right when they get out of there, do they look psychologically destroyed?
Yeah.
Like the looks on their faces, it's like, man, it looks like they just went through hell. Like Moraine's eyes are like super red and bloodshot. Um,
Yeah.
everyone's just kind of like seething and kind of looking at each other, um, like in
You
a
know,
contempt.
there's a scene it reminds me of, which is Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring after Moria. After Moria, there's a scene on the rocks on the mountainside, and they've just lost Gandalf. And then, just as they go into the forest, there's a feeling of doubt, and everyone's looking at each other in an accusatory manner, and everyone's down and just looks exhausted and drained. And this is really a parallel of that, isn't it? They've gone through a horrible, dark scene. They've lost a character, i.e., Matt in this case. They're feeling drained, and they're just about to get rest in peace. And it very much feels like a parallel of that same. And this is why some people say Eye of the World is very much like Fellowship of the Ring, and people say that they see very heavy Lord of the Rings parallels. And I think you can see that in this scene compared to the Fellowship of the Ring scene, which also shows that kind of devastated, psychologically traumatized, physically exhausted acting in the same way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this little incident here actually drives a lot of what happens in the episode. Like
Yeah,
it's almost like this has a huge domino effect for the rest of
yeah.
this episode. What do you think about the look of Dara?
I love that. I think it looks like a fortress city. It looks really compact. It looks like not beautiful. Like this has been built to be effective, not to be. It's kind of like the opposite of Tar Valon, which is all high
Mm-hmm.
and flighty and white and beautiful. And this is like, no, we're going to make this as hard as possible to attack. And I
Mm-hmm.
love the fact that Tarwin's Gap is like right there. You're like, yeah, baby. So I loved it. I loved that they had the Black Hawk everywhere. Thought that was really cool. Like not just the banners, but actual like statues of the Black Hawk on the buildings. I thought that was really cool. Really cool.
Yeah, it has a very like pragmatic look. It's almost like it was built specifically for martial purposes.
Correct. Absolutely. That's exactly my point when I say it's very different from Tar Valon, which seems to be
Yeah,
made to look beautiful, to be beautiful.
right.
This is
So yeah, they go into the city
yeah,
and we get to meet some future characters here that
yeah,
well at least a couple that have a pretty big impact in the story. Uh,
yeah.
what do you think of Uno?
Uno? I knew you were gonna say that. Well, at least they had him swear straight away just to make sure that everyone knows.
Yeah, bloody. Yeah, that's the first thing
They
that
they
comes out
they
of his
they,
mouth.
they have the first thing that comes out of his mouth is bloody. Absolutely. Um, So I thought that was funny, but also not funny. I think that was absolutely right. Like he has to be swearing, right? He just has to be.
Yeah,
Um,
he has to. It would
yeah,
be weird if he didn't.
yeah, it would have been. If you're gonna have Uno in it, that must be
I
what he does.
assume they're gonna have a lot of fantasy swearing coming from them.
They will, but I think if there's anyone who's gonna drop an S bomb or an F bomb, it's gonna be Uno.
Okay.
But if they do, if they go there, I think it's gonna be him who goes there. Because they can, because there is an arc in it where like he tries to stop himself swearing in front of the Aes Sedai. I don't know if you remember that, like with like
Hmm.
Elaine when he's trying to like sort himself out, and him trying to stop himself swearing as badly is like, and she's like, "Ooh, a new swear word to learn," and she's this princess. That's like a funny thing that they can play on. So they might have him like drop some pretty heavy swearing and then use some of the other swearing as him trying to clean up his act and play it for comedy in later seasons. We'll see. But he definitely, if anyone is allowed like to drop out heavy swearing, it's gonna be freaking Uno. Because
Hmm.
it isn't just swearing, it's part of his character. It's part of who he is. And so it's totally justified. And then
Agreed. Agreed.
this other character, this Lord Yokota.
I'm not
Um,
familiar with that character. Is that like a
no,
made-up character, or
yeah,
is there your Lord
yeah.
Dakota?
There isn't a proper Lord Yokota, but what I want to say is this: is I think he might be like a kind of replacement for Ingtar.
I heard that there's actually a casting for Ingtar.
Oh, okay, then maybe not. Like maybe not. But that's what I didn't know if that's what he might be. Um, because like
Yeah, there's a Masima casting, and then there's an Ingtar casting.
okay, well then I guess not. But that's what I was thinking because as far as I'm aware, and I mean I don't have encyclopedic knowledge, so maybe there is a Yokota. But I off the top of my head, I honestly do not remember that character, and that is unusual for me.
Right.
In Wheel of
Yeah, I
Time.
don't remember him either. Like that's not somebody I remember.
So maybe they're
Um,
just using him as main soldier in the thing, like because like the warder that we spent almost an entire episode with watching his storyline isn't a named character in Wheel of Time. Wheel of Time only had like X thousand characters. Was it 9,000? So there obviously wasn't enough characters for them to use, and they had to make up some new ones. Um, no, I'm not salty. I'm not salty at all. So
yeah, we'll
moving
have
on.
to see what role he plays.
But I think he's
Maybe
just
he,
going to be the gambling, right? The good right hand of uh, of Lord Agelmar. I think.
or maybe he'll go down in Tarwin's Gap. Who knows? Usually, a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
these
like
made-up characters seem to die pretty quickly.
yeah. So that you have a named character who can die, so that people can be like, oh, named characters can be killed.
Yeah. Um,
But what did you think of Lord Agelmar? Because I thought he was awesome.
Eaglemar was good. Of course, there's a couple different discrepancies.
Yeah, like he's way
In the
more
book,
salty
he's
than in the
yeah,
book. In the
he's
book, he
pretty
loves her,
salty.
but in the book, he
In
loves
the
her,
book,
right?
yeah. So this is something I was looking at in different Wheel of Time communities.
Yeah,
They were kind of off put that he was um, upfront and disrespectful to Moraine. Because if we take a look at kind of the relationship between Aes Sedai and the Borderlanders, often they would take the Greens would train with the
yep,
Borderlanders, and they had like this partnership where they would go out into the Blight and fight Trollocs and stuff like that.
yep,
So in there, and then even in book two, you saw how much deference Aegomar
yep,
paid to the Armelin when she came, and
hundred
he
percent.
yeah, he went way out of his way to make sure that she felt good about being there. It's almost like even amongst their society, she is a revered figure. And that's not the
Yep,
same in every other kingdom. Some kingdoms will scoff at the White Tower, So in the
yep,
Borderlands, they very, very much respect the Aes Sedai. So it was very off-putting to see him kind of like disrespectful. But then, like after
yep.
she establishes that she's there to give him a warning, he kind of goes back into, yeah, we've had a partnership for many years, and kind of does like a soft apology. about his previous behavior. But I was like, oh, that's weird. I was not expecting that. But I thought the Agomar was going to be much older than the actor that they used, because I know Agomar's like a gray, like an older guy. He has like gray
Yeah,
hair. I remember his top knot was like iron gray. Um,
yeah,
so yeah, they picked a younger guy to portray the the character. So I thought that was interesting. But I thought he did a pretty good job, like overall. Um, he fits the part, and I thought it was pretty cool that because a lot of people were having some rough times about how they were going to portray like all the different cultures and all of that. And they're like, oh, they're just going to put a random mix of people from everywhere. And I was thinking no, because they kind of established that certain cultures are going to be based off of certain things. I know for sure the Aiel are going to be somewhat homogenous looking based off of what Loyal
yeah,
said. Like, yeah, it's
yeah,
really easy to tell what an Aielman looks like because
yeah,
they all look pretty much the same. But the Borderlands, we definitely have an Asian flavor, and then we do see, that lets us build a connection between Land as we see him as like, you don't see a whole bunch of Asians in south of the Westlands or the
no,
Borderlands. So he does stand out. So now that we have an inkling of where he's from, he's not particularly from Faldara. He's
yeah,
very familiar with people there because this was
mm,
a refuge for him. But we do get to see like, okay, we see like where his fashion comes from, and they're definitely building a culture here that's visualized, and I thought they did an awesome job at it.
yeah. I really like the whole stuff with that, and I like how, because even though they do have him be a bit more hostile, um, not hostile, but like more like, hey, we're our own people. We don't really need Aes Sedai messing around here. He does say we're allied with the Aes Sedai, and the Aes Sedai are welcome here. He does, like, he says
Hmm.
like our, like, Feldar and Shiner, and a lot of things that I think that maybe the what you call it, like the non-knowledgeable fans, the TV fans, they won't
Hmm.
realize that he's not king, that like he's the
Right,
nephew of the king, that King Aesar is a different character. They'll think this is the king
right.
of this area, but he is just the lord of Faldara, and Faldara is not the capital of this country. And it's not a big deal, but I think many people will be like assuming he's the king, and obviously we know he is not. Um, but I love the interplay where it shows that you can train at the White Tower and not make it. I think that was very important
Yeah.
to include,
Hmm.
that his sister is tower trained, like maybe can slightly touch the source, but isn't capable of being a full sister. I think that was a really it only took a few seconds to put that in, but I think that was a good point. Um, I'm a little sad that it looks like we're not going to see, like, because this was normally where you are introduced to Leandrin and first see that she's a bit shady, but that's already been
Hmm.
done in other episodes, so I guess it doesn't need to happen here. But it's interesting that they've still introduced her. So I have a theory, because
What's
one
your
of the reasons,
theory?
well, in the books, Dusty, the reason she's there is, yes, to show Borderlander female culture, but one of the big reasons he's there is to be blackmailed, right? Is that
Right.
Leandrin blackmails her with a kind of compulsion, to sort of almost cause our main crew a problem. I won't say what, in case that is the thing they use. I think that they might have Padan Thane blackmail her instead.
Hmm.
It's because we see him, not now, but he,
Yeah, like right after that scene, we do see him.
we see him walk in, and so I'm wondering if, like, as the resident slightly dodgy geezer, even though we don't really know at this point in the show, where what's up with Padam Fane. We know that it's not all good, right? We've seen his interaction with Matt. We saw him like grinning on Winter's Night and then disappearing, and that he's mysteriously alive and trotting up here, and like he must have gone through the ways because there's no other. So there's all sorts of like implications that he's not on the up and up, and so like I think it might be time to show that he is bad news, and that could be the way of doing it, because I'm wondering why she's there, storyline wise, in the TV show, if it isn't to have her be blackmailed and do what she does in the books and throw the group under the bus. So I'm expecting someone bad to be able to exert control over her and her to cause a problem. Just that's my crack theory about why she's still in, because just using her to suggest that you can have a slightly trained woman who can't make it as an Aes Sedai seems a bit too weak of a reason to have her in when the cast is so limited, right?
So you think it's just going to be a direct blackmail from Fane?
Yeah, I think Fane
That's interesting.
instead. But it could be another Dark Friend. Like if they want to introduce another Dark Friend of some kind, maybe they show the Dark Friend in shadow, and later on that Dark Friend is revealed. Because as we know, there's an important Dark Friend that is introduced in Fel Dara, who you then find out much later in the Great Hunt is actually a Dark Friend. So it could be that individual as well.
Well, I know he was cast, so we have to see like how that plays out.
Yeah,
and
we will.
I remember his redemption arc was really heartfelt.
Yeah,
I hope they do that well.
Character. Yeah, exactly. I really hope they do. But one of the things is they say one thing that is really bad. Well, not bad. I shouldn't say that. Hot take.
you could go ahead and hot take.
Moiraine says, "Tell him to go find Mat." That makes complete sense. Of course she would say that. Of course she would say that because she wants Mat looking after like everybody else. She knows he's important, even if he's not the big D. But then she goes, "Make sure it's the Red Ajah." In what world, in what universe, in what turning of the wheel of time does Moiraine Sedai hand a man over to the Red? Like
I have a theory for that.
Go for it, because she doesn't.
Because they have. Well, in the ways when they're talking about Mat.
Yeah, they say the darkness within him.
Yeah, and she said specifically that she would not take him to the eye of the world because
he would turn to the
she
shadow.
believes he could be corrupted. Yeah. So my thought is, if he is too far gone, then the best bet would be to gentle him if he could channel. So
yeah,
because I'm not convinced that Moiraine knows if he can channel or not. Like, how long has Rand been around and she hasn't noticed anything there?
Well, yeah, you definitely can't tell. Like, it's understandable, and
yeah, because the women can't tell unless it's like a big flashy thing that happens.
And so
they wouldn't be able to tell specifically.
You make a good point. And like if she does think that he is potentially channeling, the Reds are the appropriate people to deal with it. But I don't know. The Moiraine in the books is just so anti-Red. I just can't imagine her turning anyone over to them. But the point is, she isn't the Moiraine in the book. She's the Moiraine that is being played by Rosamund Pike. And one of the things they've tried to show is that she is reasonable. And I think Liandrin is more likable in this show than Liandrin is in the books. Like, you meet Liandrin in the books and you hate her from like the first time she opens her damn mouth.
Yeah, she's very snooty in the books. and unlikable. And here she's kind of like oddly charismatic at times, and
yeah, and
she's more
mm,
diabolical, but she does it in a way that's sneaky and underhanded.
but also, don't you feel that like I don't know? I think in this version, Leandrin is being played a little bit like that. She thinks that what she's doing is for the greater good, and like in like a genuine way, like at least from what I've seen, like she's like, yeah, we have a different point of view, and the rest of you are a bit too soft on the whole situation, but actually we know what's best in the red, and we need to go out and fight and save the world while you guys sit here. And so yeah, you're
Mm,
wrong, Leandrin, and you're sneaky, but I if I'd only seen the show, I'd be like, you might have a point. And a few people have said that, like, I'm surprised how many people said, like, if I was going to be an Azure, I'd be the red, man. Or like,
really?
it, yeah, yeah. People
Well,
who haven't read the books. These are people who've just seen the show,
mhm.
and I remember on the red carpet they were asking one of the group, I think it was Perrin's, the guy who plays Perrin, like Marcus Rutherford, saying, "Oh, what Azure would you be?" Like, "Oh, red, man. Those guys get things done." And you're like, interesting. Um, and so I think they're trying to show the red and the blue as opposed, but not just like in the books. The reds are established as like the almost the bad guys, and it's only later that you realize that it's more nuanced than that. Whereas in
Mhm,
this, I think they've started with that political nuance a lot earlier, and
mhm,
but again in the books, like within like 2 chapters of being introduced, Leandrin is using compulsion on someone on screen,
right.
and we're in her point of view, so we know she's like outright evil almost immediately. And I
Mhm.
think they're playing this Leandrin a little different.
Yeah,
But
maybe they're
anyway,
just trying to build her up a little bit more because she doesn't
yep,
show up yet. If we're going a 1-to-1 to the book, like she doesn't she wouldn't really show up till next season. But they introduced her
no,
quite early here. Same thing with Swan.
they really did. They really did. And so it's going to be interesting, but like I found that a bit jarring. Like, yeah, go and get them to look after him, and then specifically to say, not like to say, tell the Amarylline seat or just tell the tower and trust it to them, but like, no, get him and tell the Reds. Like,
Hmm.
ugh. Yeah,
Right.
it felt
I think it's something to
aggressive.
make to sow distrust in
Yep.
Moraine still. You know, last episode people were like, "Oh yeah, she's trying to do the right thing," but next
Yeah.
episode she's like, "Yeah, tell all the Reds, send a message
Yeah.
to have him picked up." But
And
even
he
then, what are the Reds gonna do? Like if he doesn't
yeah.
channel gentling him, it's not gonna do anything. So
Yeah, correct.
I don't know. I guess she just has suspicions, and she doesn't want the Dark One to get a hold of him if he's in fact the Dragon Reborn. Because she's being like really pragmatic about it. I think because I
Yeah,
think she
agreed.
was willing to bring him along because at least she has an eye on him. But
Yeah.
now she doesn't, and he's kind of like this free agent now, and she really needs somebody to keep an eye on him. To be
Yeah,
honest.
and that's why like her saying like he needs picking up it made complete sense. It's just the red Archer thing that jarred me. So then we see them walking through town, and again we get that
Ah.
subtle evolution of Perrin, and Perrin's like, was that Padam Fane?
Yeah, and it was. And he was like, I don't know if he was being escorted or something, but right behind him were like two like Shinaran soldiers.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I
Imagine
don't,
like this is a military place, so they might just be walking. But yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. But the thing I like about it is again, it's just showing that he's more perceptive than other people,
right.
which is really cool. But one of the things that I thought was a bit funny is the person who goes to him. Well, it can't be. He's dead. Is who? Nynaeve, who got dragged away by a Trolloc on Winter's Night, almost certainly dead, and wasn't dead. But she's like, yeah, he was there on Winter's Night, so he's definitely dead. I'm like, Nynaeve,
Well,
you
it's
were
weird
there.
for her because it's hard for her to know because she hadn't been back to town since that incident.
Yeah, like
It would probably be more. It would have been better if Egwene had said,
yeah,
because
absolutely.
she was still there. So I don't know. I don't know. That seems a little plot holy to me to
Yeah,
have
it was. But
Nynaeve say that.
yeah, absolutely. But hey, who cares? But it was funny.
Yeah, my rationalization was, if the guy left his cart behind and he's
Oh
known to
yeah.
be like somewhat greedy or whatever, he's probably dead. Else he would have came back and got his cart. As we see him leave, just like straight out, he doesn't bring any cart with him. He just kind of walks
Yeah, yeah,
away from the
he's
carnage.
solo. But so then they get to where they're going and it's a pub. And then she's
Oh,
introduced
yeah. So, introduction of
Min.
a very influential character here.
And interestingly, they show her running a pub, which is yeah, like I mean, her being in an inn is a nice nod to Beryl on. But I was
Oh, you
surprised
wanted
to
her
find.
tending some horses?
Well, I thought she would just be like, no, so it's a nice nod to have her in, but like she's clearly like a business owner here, and people know her as the seer and go and visit her and stuff. You're like, really? Would that be what would Min be? Would Min be like? Anyway, it doesn't matter. This is Min. They've introduced her. She needs to be in it, and even though her visions aren't the same as in the books, they're completely in keeping with the way Min sees things, and so I was okay with that.
Yeah, there are
Eh,
some differences and there's definitely some similarities. And
yeah,
I'm like seeing some of these visions of like, what is going on? Like Rand
yeah.
holding a baby? Like, what is that?
Don't you think that's him? Like a
But
flashback
why
to
would
his
he
mom?
hold a baby of himself?
No,
I
like I think it's
guess.
like him representing Tam finding the baby on Dragonmount. That's what I thought it was saying because of the
Hmm.
episode we've seen. That's what I thought that was like talking about, like him being found as a baby. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of.
And we get the golden eyes for Perrin. And then they don't
Yeah,
differentiate between the girls, and we get the gold ring and we get the white flame. I think I
that was
have
on
theories
purpose.
about that. What are your theories for those?
Yeah, the
One is
gold
the
ring is
Armelin,
Lan's.
and
Yeah, one is
yeah,
Lan's
that's
ring,
what I
right?
thought.
The gold ring of Melchior, the crane ring that he gives, because he lets Nynaeve hang that around her neck a long time before they're together, and
Hmm.
so I think that's that, and definitely the flame is the Amerlin seat for sure. Like
Yes,
there's no doubt.
and they're deliberately not telling the audience who's who here, which is,
Yeah,
and even then, a non-book reader wouldn't really know what that
no
means at
idea.
all.
Correct.
No clue. Um, so, what do you think of Men in general, like the casting?
Yeah,
Um,
she's okay. Min should look boyish, like not boyish, that's the wrong word because she isn't boyish, but like it's good that she is not like dressed in a fancy way, that she's very like
at least
loungy.
not yet.
Yeah,
At
but
least not
i
yet.
I again, like obviously I saw Min differently in my head, but that's because I, like maybe a lot of white people, pictured almost everyone in the cast as white, and so like I didn't picture her as a borderlander, and so that was an adjustment for me. Um, but no, I think she can be a fine Min. The key thing is that Min and the other two in the trio have to be distinctly different, and I think she will be able
Hmm.
to pull that off. I was a little surprised at the way the actress chose to play her, like very world weary and jaded, a bit more so than I expected Min to be at this point. But I know that that still works because Min's already had the sort of fatalistic. No one listens to me. If I try and stop it happening, it always happens. And yeah, So I think they blended a little bit of overworked bartender and Min into one role, but I can take it. I was okay with it. She still needs to do something to win me over fully. Like I love the acting of many of these characters, and Like Min was okay. She was fine. But I wouldn't say I was swept up by the performance. But she hasn't had much to do yet. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see how this plays out, and we have to see if she's able to build up some chemistry with Yosha.
Yeah,
See how that
correct.
plays out.
That's the crucial thing.
Okay, so this next scene, I wonder if this is one of your hot take scenes here.
Yeah, you
Is
know it
when,
is.
okay, I was just wondering. All right, so the group is all settled, and it appears to be some type of room set aside for them.
Yeah.
And it looks like there's a lot of differences getting hashed out. Definitely some influence from the Black Wind. All right, so what are your gripes about this particular scene?
Well, first, right, right, the whole point of if we go to the eye of the world, everyone who's not the dragon's gonna die is just
Hmm.
silly. It's just silly. Like, no, that's not fair. I do not like that plot point. I just think it's unnecessary. It's not wrong. It's just unnecessary. Like, why would going to the eye of the world kill everybody, even though they don't know what the eye of the world is? I think it just felt fake and artificial to me. It probably doesn't feel that way to a TV watcher. It's probably just bias, right? So I don't like that. I don't like the idea that anyone who isn't the dragon is dead. It just feels very fatalistic and annoying to me. And so because of that, that undermines this argument for me of like who should go and who shouldn't, and you can't drag us there, and da, 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 da. And so I ended up not engaging with this argument because I didn't like what I felt was a false dichotomy. And so but I understand that that is my own bias speaking, because if you're just in the show and you just accept that that's a reality, then fine. But I know for a fact it's not going to be a reality because of the nature of the way they're going to do things. Because someone's got to go with him to the eye, and I know that like people are going to come back alive. Yeah. So I'm that like I think it's setting up a level of threat that the show is not going to pay off. And I think if you keep doing that, it's like resurrecting characters who you keep pretending you've killed. You end up taking the teeth out of your show, and I think they do that at their peril. If you constantly set up everyone's gonna die and then no one does, it's it's gonna have the reverse of what Game of Thrones did. Because one of the reasons Game of Thrones got this huge audience is like people got killed when they were gonna die, and then they did die, and people were like, oh crap. And that hooked people like, I just don't know what's gonna happen next. Because the people I assumed were safe aren't safe. But if you're saying, oh, everyone's in danger, anyone could die at any moment, and if they go here, they're definitely dead, and then they don't, it creates the opposite. It reduces all the stakes, and it's just not necessary. Anyway, in my view. So that really annoyed me in this argument. I just felt it, but it wasn't the thing that annoyed me the most about the episode. Like because I do realize my bias speaking, because actually the argument is very realistic. If that premise is accepted, that Moraine
Hmm.
truly believes that the prophecy means that, I think everyone reacts very sensibly. I think Nynaeve reacts like Nynaeve would react. I think Egwene is prepared to sacrifice herself for the greater good. Um, I think Perrin is just talking on a logical level, but in the end is loyal and says he'll go because others are going to go. Uh, it all makes sense to me. Their reactions, I think, are very much in character.
Well, one of the things I do know, I don't know if they're trying to build this parallel or what, is that as far as the first book goes, the prophecy of the dragon is not something that Moraine is particularly learned on. And we know this because she has to seek out Atalius and Van Deen later to get clarification about a
Yeah.
lot of what the prophecy means. So it could be simply that she's not completely informed. I think that's what the case is going to be, but I understand that they're trying to build up some drama and some
And
things for non-book readers to talk about.
yeah, and
you know,
the only bit of the drama that's really annoying is like they get really worked up about Matt and stuff, but then they have Perrin like suggest that there's basically a love triangle going on. And I get that.
yeah,
I get that. And there are elements in the book, especially during like the Aram scenes when they're with the Tinkers, that
right.
that actually that isn't.
He does get jealous.
Yeah, what I'm saying is it's not non-canonical that Perrin had some interest in Egwene, and it makes
Hmm.
complete sense. If you grow up in a small village, the young hot girl who's your age and is probably the nicest dressed in the village because she's the daughter of like basically the village leader. It's
Uh-huh.
not surprising that quite a few of the lads noticed Egwene. I grew up in a community, even though I'm in a big city, like my church was a much smaller community, and so I remember that like amongst the guys in our little community, there's only a few girls our age. So when we would talk about girls, we'd talk about those girls. Yeah. Because they're just naturally who we both knew. So I don't have a problem with Perrin having considered Egwene. I think it's more annoying that they have inserted this wife and then suggested that Perrin married his wife when he really wanted Egwene. I think that gives Egwene a level of influence over Perrin that is beyond what is sensible and makes it feel more love triangle-y. And then
Hmm.
you have which I don't think is necessary again. And especially when like gets up in Rand's face, he's like apologize to her. Like that's pure love triangle nonsense. And I just think
I'm,
that
I hate all this love triangle stuff. That's my least favorite
exactly.
part of the episode.
It's just unnecessary. Am I right, Andrew? Am I right?
Yeah, it's totally unnecessary. It's just all oh, drama. Oh, you like him. Oh, you never liked him. Oh.
So I'm not saying that it's like completely non-canonical or anything. I'm just saying it's not beneficial to the plot. I know it's not
Mhm.
beneficial to the future plot. So just why?
Mhm.
You
I
we're
think it's
talking.
mostly because they wanted to show the effects of Ma Shin.
I know, but they
Um,
could have done other things. They could have been like,
Like they had all this. They had all this thing like you loved Egwene when you were with your wife.
but we don't even need that. Like, why couldn't it have been like Egwene's gonna tell them you killed her, right?
oh,
Because he's
she
told
knows. Yeah,
Egwene,
that's right.
like, she knows. She's telling them. She already told them. Like that is a definite thing that's playing on his mind and making him distrust. She knows you're odd. She saw your eyes. She knows about the wolves. Like she's going to tell Moraine, and Moraine's going to do to you what she's been doing to Matt, or whatever it is, right? But there's loads of stuff they could have gone with down that line. There's just no need for this freaking love triangle. Anyway, whatever. I just think it's a
Yeah.
stupid thing, and it's a what you call it. It's like I think they think that's going to play well with the audience. I think they're like, oh, the girls and boys are going to be like, oh, who's she going to end up with, and that's going to be like a
Uh,
thing. Exactly, and Andrew,
oh man, I really hope they
I was
don't make that a whole thing. Like, let's string this along for for half the series or so.
oh Andrew,
Well, he's
don't
supposed to
say
meet
that.
Fael next season. I don't know what happens. So.
Okay.
But the point is that when Fail turns up, there does need to be someone who Fail is jealous of, and I'm praying that they make it Berylane and they don't make it Egwene. I am praying that they make it Berylane because one of the things about Berylane is that she's a right little hottie, but also that she is a little bit of a like she's prepared to play the slut card, and Fail's completely the opposite. So Fail struggles to feel that she can compete with Berylane, but Egwene wouldn't play that, and Egwene wouldn't deliberately flirt and play anybody along. So it removes that dynamic, And I love the fact that Fail wins that fight. I love that. And I think it's a
No,
great thing.
Berylane wins the fight.
Well, she does not. She wins.
Yeah, remember? Because
You're
Berylane,
talking-
like, basically. You mean, are we talking about the physical fight or like
Yeah.
the?
You're talking about the physical fight. I'm talking about the one who ends up with Perrin, which is the real
Oh,
fight.
okay.
Because
I
that
thought you were
sends-
talking about the physical one.
No, because that sends a great message. Well, the fact that Berylane wins the physical fight also sends a great message. Don't underestimate the pretty girl. Just because she's a pretty girl don't mean she can't kick ass, and which is awesome. But it sends a really good message to girls everywhere and guys everywhere that, like, don't worry. Like, if someone is truly truly the right kind of person that you'd want to be with, even if they notice the super hot guy and girl over there, if they really appreciate you and know you and love you, they will come to you even if they are attracted to other people. Like, that's a good message that, like, if you have a relationship that is genuine and based on friendship and powerful love, that they can notice that there's people hotter than you, and that doesn't necessarily mean they leave you. I think that's a really good message to suggest about relationships. And that Perrin does make that call. Like, he clearly knows that Berylaine's super hot, but he accepts that he's attracted to her, but that doesn't control his choice. And I think that's really, really important.
Yeah,
so
of course.
I don't
Yeah,
want
like
to lose
they're
that.
not like they're
don't wanna
like
lose that.
they're yeah. Like they're
It's a good
you don't
message.
have to be like an 18-year-old all about like, oh, the only redeeming quality of this person is that they're hot.
Correct. It can be more interesting. But if it's Egwene, we lose that. Because Egwene's not going to be that person. She's going to be the unknowing object of his affection. Well, actually, not so unknowing now because they just made it brinking obvious. And so if Egwene doesn't go, look, I'm not interested, it's going to look like she's playing him along. And I don't think that's in her character. I just don't want them to do the love triangle. Just now drop it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really don't want them to either. That's
Yeah.
I
Like,
like most of the episode, but that's my biggest complaint of it for sure.
And before we go
Is,
too
the love
before we go on the rest,
triangle.
you've only just shown up, Andrew. Andrew, what did you think of that cold open? I mean, it was a very cold open.
Oh yeah, I think like Dusty said, I think we're all agreed that's definitely the fucking best cold open. That's so awesome. It's a scene we never see in the books, but I love that they added it. Ren's mother pregnant with him, killing a whole bunch of motherfuckers because she's a badass Aiel. That's awesome.
And we see Tam.
Yeah, Tam saves her. I love how they do that at the end of the episode, how they add the last part of that flashback.
Well,
Yeah,
of course, we knew who it was. But, but they had to show the audience. Here's the face, so to make it definitive here.
Yeah,
here's his
But it
face.
was cool. It was freaking cool. And like, it showed the heron mark blade, so you could start thinking, and then you can go, oh, I got it right, and that gives you that feeling. But we also got to see the flashback for Rand when he was taking his dad and the fever dream.
Yeah, that was good too.
Yes.
That's so cool they included that. And I'm like, yeah, this is a good place to include that. I'm good with this. I'm loving this.
And, it's so interesting that they held it back like for 7 episodes.
Yeah. It's awesome.
And then just dropped it right there. So yeah, I knew you guys would be pretty upset about this.
What do you think
triangle.
about the love triangle thing, Dusty?
I'm a little bit ambivalent about it. One of the things I don't like about it is that I don't want this to get too Shannara Chronicles, because there is a love triangle in there too that kind of like made me roll my eyes. Even though it was kind of true to the books. But...
Yeah. In Shannara Chronicles, there is a love triangle. Like, that is a plot point that needs resolving in the books. But there's just no need for it here.
Yeah, no, there isn't.
Anyway, let's get on.
We're just trying to add some drama, you know.
Before we move on, I know you guys probably already talked about this, but what did you guys think about the Ways and Machin Shin?
Okay.
We thought the Ways was visually pretty cool.
Okay. I think we're all agreed about that then. I thought the
And
Ways was pretty good too. Yeah.
not the way I expected it to look, but actually I'm okay with it. I think it makes sense. It looks like natural but unnatural. I love the dark cloying feeling, and wind is always hard to show. And so like you've got to show it, right? And they did, and I'm good with it. I'm good with it. It looked
Yeah,
ominous,
the
dark,
black
natural.
wind looked like kind of like a swarm of locusts
Correct.
that was just kind of
Instead of like,
surrounding them.
Yeah. Yeah.
but how do you
That was
show
cool the way
wind?
they did it.
Yeah, I think it's the best thing they could have done, really, because the only other way they could do it is streaks, and streaks looks too much like the power, the way they've
Yeah.
shot the
Right.
power. So it needed to not look like the power, otherwise that would have been a mess. So no, I'm pretty big fan. I think they did a good job.
Yeah, me too. What did you guys think about them introducing a Trolloc in the Ways earlier on? I thought that I had no problem with
That's
that.
fine, because one of the
Yeah.
points of that, Andrew, is they realize in the books that the Trollocs have been traveling the Ways. So that's just a way to do it. One Trolloc got lost from the army when the army have been going through. Makes sense. Fine. You find him, and it gives them a chance to have someone use the power, which then pulls Mashin Shin. So I think that episodically, that fulfilled a multitude of roles. And I think that's exactly what the show has to do. So I have absolutely no problem with that. I think that was a good choice, a good change that fulfilled lots of storyline purposes. Unlike the love
well
triangle.
said. Yeah, exactly. The love
I have,
triangle is it's just adding a bunch of stupid shit.
So I do have a fun fact for you guys, something that was cut out of the show.
Oh.
Apparently, if you take a look at some of the bonus stills, there are some stills where Padam Fane is like right outside the Faldara portal, and he
Okay.
looks at a trefoil leaf.
I like it. I
So-
like how they added Pat and Fane a few times in this episode, and they're
Yeah, so apparently, I guess the locking mechanism still exists. Well, I don't
Yeah,
know
and
if they're going to put it back in the show, but apparently it was in the show at some time, or maybe they might flash back to him looking at the leaf key.
in the X-ray comments, Dusty, there is one that says Augier can lock the Ways, but they're not eager to share this knowledge.
The
So-
secret,
Oh.
yeah.
okay.
The fact that they've put that in the X-ray comments suggests that it's not off the table.
Okay. As I know, instead of locking the ways, Moraine suggests they guard the gate.
Yeah, because they're suggesting she doesn't know, but the Augier do.
Okay. All right, so
Yeah, let's keep going.
yeah, the love triangle bit. Yeah, I thought it was kind of weird, and then Nynaeve's like butting in about it. I thought was kind of strange. It just seemed really awkward
Yeah.
for the most part, and it
Yeah.
felt like, man, I hope Perrin and Rand don't fight, because I swear Perrin would just tear him up.
Yeah.
Well, unless Rand does
uses the
something we
power,
don't- Yeah, like frick.
yeah. So next we kind of get into
Moraine and Lan.
yeah, Moraine suggests that this might be like the last thing they do. She's unsure on whether they're going to survive the encounter with the
Yeah,
Eye of
because
the
of the whole
World.
stupid anyone who goes who isn't a dragon's dead thing, which is another reason just to not do that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm stopping talking now.
Yeah, so she's like, yeah, you need to see your people before you come back, because this is kind of, she's implying that this might be the last time he gets to see them.
It's another example of this is another example of the show's so short you have to miss the stuff out, but we're just gonna have every scene be scenes that aren't actually in the books.
I thought this
Yeah.
next sequence though did some amazing character building
Yeah.
for Lan.
Yeah, I love this show. You know I love this show. But what I'm saying, but it is true that they just constantly don't have stuff in the books, and they constantly are adding extra scenes. Like, come
Let's
on,
add
guys.
these scenes
But
so you get the feel of the books. Yeah.
yeah, but the scenes are good. Like that scene with Moraine and Lan, where she says, "I've taken everything from you," and he says, "You've taken nothing from me. You are a reason to live and a reason to die." Like,
Yeah.
Right.
That's good.
That's Lan all over. That's totally in line with his character. Her worrying about him and wanting him to be able to outlive her is very much in her character. I feel that conversation could have been in the books, right? It could have. It's that good. And this next scene is fantastic. At least, yeah, the very next scene, the one after that, I
like the one after that.
I'm sure you do. But this next one, Dusty, tell me why you love it.
Well, I know like a lot of Lan is a mystery for pretty much the majority of the first book. The only time they really get into his background is when they see like the ruins of Malkir.
Yes.
But
it's kind of just Strider in the first book.
Pretty much, yeah. He's kind of a Strider archetype. But I loved that you got to see his people. You get to see like some actual Malkiri, and then he kind of explains himself. But he's walking through the streets, and he knows that he's being followed by Nynaeve. So I don't know if he's like putting on a show with the people, or he's probably just acting like being natural, and what he would do when he's with his people.
Mm-hmm.
So
I like that scene too. I thought it was really good at character development. The only little nitpicky thing that was probably just a weird editing thing was where she was
the magic.
Nynaeve was looking through the window, and then he just popped up right next to her, like he just teleported or something like that. That was
the everyday Negroes thought he had like some special powers.
Yeah.
Because he just appeared. They're like, "What? How did he get out there?" But yeah, he was just he just appeared outside. I think this is like probably to get her back for tracking him. I guess this is kind of like revenge in a way.
Like,
say, hey, I could do it too.
Ronnie, and he calls Ronnie. He's like, "Yeah, you're not tracking me. You're following me around like a creepy woman." But I love this. I love how it shows that Lan does have a people, that there are people who love him and honor him. They thank her for keeping him safe. When she comes in, they greet her as an Aes Sedai, and she's able to say, "I'm not an Aes Sedai," which is really good way of establishing that just because she uses the power doesn't mean that she wants to be one of them. But it also shows that people are beginning to see her as that. She's beginning to walk like that and talk like that. But it is cool. It's really cool. I love the fact that they drop in the Daishan and that they explain the situation to Nynaeve. I think that definitely had to be, that's vital to her understanding Lan's character. I love all of that. And like, I love the way they explain, like, he was the guard who brought him away from the palace. That's why he's alive, even though he's lost in Malkiri. And if they'd gone and ended that with their budding romance growing at the door, I would have been delighted.
You didn't want that to progress further yet, quite yet.
I like that they did that. Well, like for my own selfish purposes, because I like that stuff, but also because that's what they're doing in the show. They're establishing the relationships with characters much more clearly early on, like how they did with Moiraine and Randon and Gwyn and Moiraine and Amaryl and Seat.
Yeah.
What don't you like about it?
Well,
what I don't like about it is that like, do you know what book they get together in?
No.
Just out of interest.
7?
Right? So the point is, right, that like, and if you write books, this is something that people will tell you, is that once you get them together, right, you have now removed a host of opportunity to develop the romance plotline. And they haven't just got together, they've now slept together. So
Mhm.
also, I genuinely think this slightly undermines Lan's character. I really do. Because Lan is incredibly stoic person. He doesn't want anyone to get close to him because, like, he says, like, being married to him is like being married to death and all this. And obviously, they've gone for a different approach here. They've gone for a different approach. This Lan is more emotional. He's more human. And Tristram has just got to be okay with that. So I don't mind that, like sex is part of their character and that they didn't wait till they got married to have sex, even though the Lan and Moiraine in the Lan and then even the books, it is a big deal too, because they're both shown as old-fashioned characters for whom tradition and oaths are a big deal. I get that they're showing them as a different world here, where people are less bothered about that kind of thing, and so it's a general thing, and it's just the way it's going to be. But it did grate on me as a lover of those characters, and
Okay.
because they've already accelerated. But the key thing is this: who cares, right? I don't care as much about that. What I care about is we're now going to lose, in my opinion, the arrival of that relationship, the gradual nature of its revealing. And I'm like, this is one of the things you could have taken just maybe 4 seasons to do, just 4.
Mhm.
And like
They
now,
they could have stretched that out instead of like adding this whole love triangle thing and adding drama there. They could have like played up the drama in their relationship more instead. That would have been more true to the books. I can see that point.
Because they are a love triangle. They're not a kiddie teenager love triangle, but they are a love triangle because Lan has 2 crucial women in his life. He is not romantically interested in Moiraine, but she is closer to him than a wife, than a sister, than a mother. She is his life. She's also his cause. But he finds a romantic interest in Nynaeve. He does find it this early. Like, he is interested in her in book 1. And there is that juxtaposition that Nynaeve wants him, but knows she can't have him because he's bonded to Moiraine. She knows in the books, if I have sex with him, it's going to be like I'm having sex with Moiraine because she's going to feel it. She's going to be in the room with us, in the bedroom.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah.
And like, one of the things she says is like, I want your bond. And like, one of the reasons she becomes an Aes Sedai, one of the reasons that she does everything is to beat Moiraine. And now that plot line's just got to go. It's got to. And like, we've already got Moiraine talking about how she can get rid of the bond. And when Moiraine does get rid of the bond, she doesn't get rid of it to Nynaeve. But the way they're building this up, like, Lan's already freaking having sex with her. They're clearly now a couple. Like, Lan is not going to float around girls, and neither is Nynaeve. So they're clearly already now openly and frankly and truly a physical bonded couple. Like, why wouldn't they get married tomorrow? Like, and one of the things that Lan says is like, like Aes Sedai sometimes wed and stuff like this. Like, so it's already been voiced.
And they have some premonition stuff when Nynaeve is training for an Aes Sedai, right? Like, she has these visions of being
married to Lan.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it's not like, oh, go have your sex on TV, whatever. That's not the thing. The thing is that love story is, in my opinion, the best love story in the series. Even better than Perrin's and Fael's, better than Rand's and the trio. I love this love story, and I feel like I'm kind of gonna miss it because they have to make sure it happens in this one to make sure they get season 2. I feel that's what's happening. That they're like, we've got to front load it so that we get season 2. But the thing that I worry now is they freaking better not have one of them cheat in order to make it more interesting later on.
Man, yeah, that would piss me off too.
Lan, doesn't he kind of have to cheat because that's kind of part of the story?
But you see, before Dusty, that happened before they were together. That happens before he rescues her, before he kisses her, before he bonds her and marries her. And that's my...
Well, he gives her a ring, though. He gives her a ring in the second book.
Because he clearly does love her. and there's a beginning, but we can both agree that saying to a girl like "you have my promise" and boning her in the night are different levels of commitment, right?
Yeah. Well, I do know that. I don't know. Don't they kiss in book 4?
They have some brief interactions where you can see things are growing, but when Moraine dies, he goes by and leaves.
Yeah.
I
And,
mean,
Yeah.
when
and
Maureen dies.
Yeah.
dies,
Quote
but
unquote.
Yeah.
and then but when Nynaeve tries to get close to him and they're having those beginning of the romantic arc in books 3 and 4, he says to her no and shuts her down because he knows it will ruin her, or that's what he thinks he knows. And she gets ticked off with him. She's like, I don't care. And we don't actually see that in detail. We see it through another person's point of view, I think Egwene's, and we see her like shouting at him and saying, I don't care that you're married to death, or something like this. Like, I want you, and she's being really bold, and Lan is just being very stoic and like, no, I'm doing this for your own good. I've got to keep us apart because you are
Yeah.
young and beautiful and you should have more than me. And
Yeah.
I like that. Now, that isn't
Yeah.
maybe it's not a modern enough relationship that
Well,
they
it is
think.
it is a common trope though, but it's a common
Yeah.
trope because it's effective. It works or at least in most renditions that you see it. I love you, but we can't be together because my life is too dangerous for you, and you'll get killed. And it works.
Mm.
The thing with Lan, he's saying I'm damaged, right? Like, because he's like, I hate the Dark One, and I'm gonna go and fight the Blight on my own one day and die. And like we've seen in, for example, this one of the things they've taken pains to show us is that if his warder dies, he's gonna want to die. And like things, he's like, I don't know how Moraine dying is gonna work. And then Lan does figure out that she's gonna pass it on, and he knows that, and he's not happy about it. And there's like that, like they hinted it, and I think that this sex scene, which isn't like super sexy or anything, is it? Like they're not like crazy, but it undercuts.
Yeah, they kind of skip the main event like they have so far, which it seems like they're gonna do. Which
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that it's not explicit, even though I like that kind of ramped up, more explicit sex that they do in Game of Thrones, because this isn't Game of Thrones. It's not it's supposed to have that same sort of attitude towards it.
Yeah, they are trying to aim at a slightly wider audience, aren't they? Like like by cutting out the extremely explicit stuff, but clearly still having people boning and having sex and being open about it, a couple of naked scenes, etc. They're saying, yeah, look, so far we'll go, but there's a bit that we're not going to do, and I think they're hoping that will widen how many people can watch it, especially teenagers. And I'm a fan of it.
And I'm probably sure that Harriet was like, no sex scene.
Yeah, like not bald faced, like let's watch it going in her butt, and like you. I'm just saying, Game of Thrones held nothing back, and there's a reason I could not watch that show. And like there's just stuff you don't need to see to know what's going on. And the point is, the story should be king in every like it should be more important than the action sequences, more important than the set dressing, more important than who gets a bigger paycheck. The story should be king. If it's a great story, people will come back and watch the rest of it.
If you build it, they will come.
But that's what I don't like about this, is I think it is not I think the story, the length of story that we were going to have with those two characters has been truncated, and now we won't be able to benefit from the will they, won't they, and how are they going to overcome these challenges. I'm sure that Rafe will still give us challenges. I don't think he's going to marry them in season 1. But even that just that grinds my gears, because they are the two who are all about the tradition. And
I think he's going to go to Alana.
You think Lan's gonna go to Alana?
Possibly.
Yeah, he will. No, definitely. But he won't go to Alana until after the Moraine bit, and the Moraine bit can't happen for like 2 seasons minimum, right? Because
Yeah, because
they have
they
to.
already like kind of established that, hey, Alana's like the one that takes on like the warders who are
Yeah.
orphaned, so to speak.
Yep.
So, and then
But
we also see that Alana has
yeah,
very physical relationships with her warders.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
I don't think
yeah.
they're going to introduce Morel.
No,
They're probably just
no.
going to
It,
combine that
And
role.
the Greens can have
yeah,
multiple warders if they want to, right?
correct. And no, you're absolutely right, Dusty. As soon as Moraine and Alana had that conversation, I'm like, Alana's going to take that role. And I think that's a great choice. Great choice. Like 100%, that's a great choice.
I
For the
totally see
show.
your point about Maureen or not Maureen, Nynaeve and Lando, because that like they take away this added up drama that actually happens in the book, and they create this stupid love triangle stuff between Perrin, Rand, and Egwene.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
the
I'm
love
gonna
triangle with
take. I'm just
Go
gonna
on.
say I'm gonna take a
Be
wait and
positive.
see approach. I'm gonna see
Yeah.
what happens. I'm not gonna try to disappoint myself right now.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be optimistic.
Yeah, you're a good man, Dusty. You're a good man. But I everything else in the episode, apart from those 2 things, I'm a fan of. Like, but those things storyline wise, they just wound me right up.
Yeah.
I'm trying with my wife who sat there, who's just like, yeah, this is a good show, and I'm like, Lan should just go.
This doesn't
They're
happen.
doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Like he should be like. Well, I better not say that when they're in bed together, right? Doing it wrong. No, but yeah, like it's fine. Like this, at least it didn't have her like knocking on Rand's door and sleeping with him. Then I really would.
Yeah,
have been out.
that would piss me off, even if it showed it explicitly.
At
I'd be like, "What is this now? Like we're
least
turning it into Game of Thrones here?"
at least it's the right guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I was like, and like they even did the whole, "Are you sending me away?" Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah. So you're saying that when Nynaeve asked him, should I leave? You're saying that Lan should have said yes.
Well, yeah. Well, I don't even think that should. I think they should have. You know, the scene outside the door. He should have said,
Yeah.
"All right, bye. We've had a great evening. Our relationship has really grown. I've let you into my life." And like, I would have loved it if he'd said, "You know, you mean something to me," and she'd go like, "Yeah, you mean something to me." And then he'd gone, like, "You know, I told you about Malkier. Our sign was the crane." And he takes off the ring, and he says, "I want you to know if you ever need me, I'll be there for you," and gives her the ring. Like, that to me would have been like, boom. Like, clearly, I'm in love with you, you're in love with me. It can never be, but actually, I'm acknowledging it. But like, to have her then like come in and go, "Hey, like, we had a good date. How about I sleep here?" I'm just like, come on. Nynaeve, really? Like that's what I expect in an episode of Suits, you know?
Right.
Not like Nynaeve Almira, Wisdom of the Two Rivers, where like people wear good homespun woolens and like she doesn't even show a bit of skin.
The
And now
other
she's
thing,
like,
that I was wondering about actually was they added this thing in the show where wisdoms are supposed to be celibate for some reason. So does she figure I'm not in the Two Rivers anymore, so I don't need to obey that?
I don't. Yeah, like whatever. It's because like, and especially considering they've played that up, right? That just by being the apprentice, Egwene was basically dumping Rand, and that's like a whole thing. Like, I'm
Yeah.
choosing wisdom over you. And so you're absolutely right there, Andrew. I didn't even think of that. I was being so annoyed with myself that I got on my high horse, and from so high up, I couldn't even see the reality of what you just said. But no, that's a really good point. That like it's just like, yeah, I've given up everything I used to be. Like, who cares about my previous character development?
I know we left the town I was in for my entire life like a month ago. I think that's been long enough.
Like Lan's like, and I turned my back on everything. I try and practically not to even associate with my entire society because I believe that like my life is over. But hey, in this case, let's just shack up. And it's a good thing that Moraine probably had a nice night,
Yeah.
Unless she was sleeping.
Well, she wasn't. If I know Lan and Nynaeve in bed, from what the book suggests, there was no sleeping involved. Like, they're very clear that because they're both very clear that while they're quite prudish in public, that in the bedroom, that they do all sorts of shenanigans and craziness. Oh, but that's like in the books. Like Lan says, like, he who obeys in public commands in the bedroom. And so clearly, because normally the man is in charge outward side, so basically that traditionally the women are in charge in the bedroom, which is an interesting way of making sure that like the sort of domination or abuse thing can't happen, because traditionally the woman is in control of that part of the relationship. But obviously, because she's an Aes Sedai and he's her warder, she's in control in the world. And so in the bedroom, he gets it his way. And you can suggest, it definitely suggests that he gets her to do all sorts of crap. And so you're like, it puts a smile on your face. And Jordan doesn't go into it, but you can think whatever you want to think. And he did that on purpose so that men can just say, my fantasy just happened. And that whole point. So Moraine didn't sleep last night. She might have had a few releases, but she didn't sleep.
Yeah.
And so
okay, so she got put into a Boston crab, a figure 4.
That reversing control is interesting too. That's like almost a BDSM thing. We're gonna switch the Doms with the subs at this point.
Correct.
I think, for the most part, I think I am happy with their character development. I just have to see what happens as a consequence of pairing them up sexually this early.
Yeah,
I just have to see how they're going to handle it.
Like, I just want to be clear. I'm okay with them being paired up. Like, it is clear in book 1 that they're developing a romantic attachment. But a romantic attachment does not mean that she knocks on his door and gives him like a booty call. Like, it's just not the way that those characters previously would have interacted. And I don't think it was necessary because we've already got that kind of with the young ones. We know that, yes, we know you can have sex, and we've got that with Siuan and Moraine as well. So sex is happening. We're not pretending it doesn't happen. And other relationships are going to blossom earlier. And just, it would have been nice to see a slow relationship develop over time and to have a reason for why they were taking it slow because of the problem with the Bond and Moraine. And then to have him going to Alanna and have her absolutely furious and gutted about that. And I guess that can still happen, but it's going to feel really weird if when he goes to Alanna, she knows that he's basically married and banging Nynaeve and then still takes him and bonds him, knowing that. It seems a bit weird.
But the thing is she's trying to save Lan's life in doing that.
But
I know the Aes Sedai have a lot of rules.
But if you know he's married basically to this other woman who's also basically an Aes Sedai at that point, hello.
But I know like the cure for that would be to hook up, according to the books. That was part of the treatment plan.
Yeah, well, they say that when you get like you need something powerful to fill the void. When Swan and Leanne are stilled, one of the things Leanne does is bring men back into her life. And flirts loads and has sex and stuff because that's part of her finding something to grasp onto. Whereas Swan, of course, just dives into a cause and like makes bringing down a lady in the tower her passion and uses that to drive her and help her overcome not having the source anymore. Because Swan, man. Swan.
Right.
I think that's what Moiraine would do. If Moiraine was stilled, I don't think she'd go and have sex with a bunch of people. I think she'd be like, cause, yes. But like, if like Egwene was stilled, I think she'd just go and start banging all sorts of people. But it makes complete sense. But the thing is, it makes far more sense if Morel or Alana doesn't know that basically Lan has a life partner that he's already dedicated his life to 3 seasons ago.
Right.
But if you do know that, you're taking him and doing that with him takes on a weird, much creepier. It's already creepy enough, right? But it's going to be way creepier if they do that, and it's not going to be popular with TV-only fans who will not be ready for it.
Alana's not a popular character at that point in time.
Yeah.
So,
we'll see. It's going to be really
messed up. They can do it in an effective way, at least.
I hope.
Well, that's the thing I feel bad about the actress that plays Alana. She knows that she's going to become like a mental rapist.
Yeah.
We'll see how they do that. But all right. So we spent a lot of time on Nynaeve debacle. We're not done with it. Yeah, we're not done with her yet. But before we get to some other discussion about that relationship, there's a scene between Rand and Egwene. Rand's like doing archery practice, and he's doing loads better than I could do. But apparently he's still not satisfied with how he's doing. But Egwene, she comes in and she basically demands an apology. But I liked the way that it happened, though. She's like, "Why didn't you come to me and talk to me?" It's like, well, we all know that the best time is when you come to me. That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah.
When it comes to my relationships, it's like, whenever I try to approach, it's not going to happen.
Gotta let her cool down.
Yeah, so it's a fairly accurate depiction of a spat happening. I don't know how they solve that. But yeah, I guess they made amends for what happened regarding the triangle. And they pretty much.
I like to her response that she's way more mad that Rand accused her of ever having doubted and not liked Mat than she is that she would be attracted to Perrin. Because that at least that's it could have gone the other direction and ramped up the love triangle thing even more. So I think that's good.
Agreed.
Yeah, that was a pretty important bit.
It was good.
You're hoping this is the end.
Yeah.
Yes, I really am.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Please don't let it be that Perrin is like, I'm desperate for you, Egwene, and I'm only holding myself away because Rand loves you. Because if that's true, then when Rand goes somewhere and don't have her, you two acting as if she's something you can win. Oh, shut up! I never liked that. Neither of them even said that. I'm like, oh, come on.
She's just escalating the situation.
Yeah.
But that wasn't, I guess Nynaeve does escalate situations unthinkingly. So, yeah. But yeah, actually, I find that discussion between Egwene and Rand pretty good. I think it shows their relationship pretty well. Neither of us is the weakling here. We're both able to speak our minds.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing happens regularly in the books. Not over this subject, because this subject never comes up, but over other ones.
Yeah, they do a lot. They do a lot of childish bickering with each other throughout the books
do.
for sure. Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, it seems like they do more during the books than they do in the show.
yeah, I
but-
like that because that was one of
Yeah.
the few annoying things to me in the books anyway. Like, oh, stop fucking all this. Like, oh, I'm not good with women. He's way better with women. Oh, he's so good with women. I wish I were as good with women as
Oh,
he
I
is.
love all that. Anyway, but it's good.
Yeah, so we can go back a little bit. So
go
Lan has a
forward.
conversation with Nynaeve, particularly about the bond, and Nynaeve definitely sees the bond differently than Lan does. Nynaeve sees it as a leash or as some type of tool of control, and Lan tries to explain it that it's no different from her bond to what he calls the kids. I think he calls them the kids.
Yeah.
Which is,
and she doesn't want freeing from that. And he's like, yeah, it's not like she has me leashed. I am her willing and devoted partner.
Yeah,
And
he
we
says
do this
he doesn't own me.
Yeah.
right.
It's one of the things I really like is that, like, no one owns me like a master owns a slave. But when my wife says that's my husband, I absolutely agree. I am hers. But in the same way, she is mine. Neither of us is in a position of superiority, but it is a kind of ownership. There is a level of you are mine and I am yours. And I think that's what it is with the Warder and the Aes Sedai as well. Like, there is an ownership, but it's not a master and a slave. It is a partnership of absolute support, trust, empathy, and oneness.
Yeah. Well, they call it the bond, right? And that's
Yeah.
kind of similar to marriage in a way, because with the wedding rings and the ceremony and stuff, you're bonding
Yeah.
yourself to each other.
It's definitely what Robert Jordan was going for, Andrew. I think he was going for the idea of, if marriage could be even more than marriage, what would it be? And I think that's
Right.
what he was going for with the Warder bond. Absolutely.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I don't think it's an accident either that later on he allows a female warder. I think that's on purpose to suggest, yeah, everyone thought it had to be a man and a woman, but actually, can it be a woman and a woman? And
Right.
and like that, I think that's like, I think that was deliberate on Robert Jordan's
That's
part.
that's how they save Brigida. That's why they do that, right?
It is correct.
Right.
But the
Okay.
only reason no one was doing it before is because no one thought you could. Like,
Right.
They thought
Yeah,
you could
there's a lot of that happens throughout the show and the books, of course, right? What?
Which
That
is
should
right.
be impossible, yet it happens somehow.
and that's a cool thing that Robert
Yeah,
Jordan's
for
showing
sure.
is actually in the Wheel of Time, technology advances, magic understanding advances, and even social norms are challenged and changed. And that is one of the things that makes the series so freaking interesting. Yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
So that's a good point, Dusty. It's a good point that they bring that up, and it shows that Lan understands the bond better than Nynaeve.
Yeah.
Shocker,
And then we
considering
get
he's in one and she totally is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we get to hear the heartbreaking story of Lan's origin.
Oh,
so she
man.
asks what Daishar
Yeah.
means, and he explains that it's the future king of Malkir. And
Yeah,
that's when he
and that
explains
needed
what
to
happened.
happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, that would have happened either way, because I know in the
Yeah.
book it happens in the Blight when they
Yep.
explain the ruins of Malkir. But
definitely needs to happen.
He explained his story, and
Yep.
it's very similar to the origin that he
Yep.
crafted here for Nynaeve.
Yep, love it.
So they kind of have something to bond with, not only with, well, their origins are very similar.
Yeah.
So after that, I guess she's gonna go back to her rooms or something. He just tells her to stay. And this whole time she's like fully clothed. So when she says to stay, that's probably when they presumably knock boots.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's clear because like she wakes up tomorrow and she's rebraiding her hair. So
She wants
And
to
he's
do
like-
she wants to do the sneak out of the room and do the walk of shame thing.
yeah, but like, and would she? I mean, this is naive. I mean, come on. Anyway, no, I'm not going to comment. I've said my piece.
Yeah, so we get another
Do your own
interesting
separate
thing.
episode with just you ranting about this, Tristram. That
I'm
would be
the problem is I'm too in love with their relationship, like, and so I got a bit stuck on my little hill, and then when my hill was destroyed, I was like, "Damn yo, I love that hill." Anyway, it's probably not going to matter in the long run because at least he's going to have them get together. Like I said, if he suddenly decided she gets together with Matt, I would have noped out of the show. Like,
yeah, me too. Yeah.
so he's
Uh.
just accelerated it very, very quickly, which I think is a shame. He hasn't done anything unforgivable. Just, I think it's a shame. I think it won't be as
Yeah.
good. That's all.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Anyway,
They're
I'm not
still,
going to
they're
talk
still
about that.
getting all the main things
Yeah,
important for the most
100%,
part.
I agree.
Like we see at the end of the episode, of course, that obviously Rand is the Dragon Reborn. So they didn't change that major
No,
thing and
and-
fuck up the whole show. So that's good.
No, and their relationship
Yeah, I'm
is really
talking
good.
about so talking about Rand, very
Yeah.
next scene.
Yeah.
Rand is waking up after
Yeah.
some coital relations with Egwene. And it seems like he's just like remembering things. So we
Yeah.
get to see a couple different flashbacks of his memories. One of the very first ones that pops up is him taking Tam through the forest after the attack on the farm, and you hear him talking about what the fever dream was, which is that he was born outside of the village on the Dragon Mount, and then Rand goes and he starts practicing some archery while these flashbacks are occurring.
And this time he's
Yeah,
using
he's-
the void.
Yeah, he's using the void because he's getting like, I guess he's
Perfect.
trying to suppress these emotions, but he's getting perfect bullseyes here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And he
channeling
thinks
it.
about some other things too. So the next thing he thinks about is the encounter with the Dark Friend.
Yeah.
And we see clearly that when he busts down the doors, we see weaves. And not
Yeah, he was
only are they,
channeling. We kind of
Yeah,
already
there's-
knew that, but they made that even more clear.
yeah, so we see the weaves.
Yeah.
We see him
In the
also
waves.
saving Egwene.
Yeah, saving
Which
a
we
brain in the
thought-
waves. Yeah.
Yeah, we thought they were Egwene's weaves, but they
Only 9
reframed it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because Egwene says,
that-
I didn't mean to channel.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And
so
then
she thought she did it for accident. And then it shows that, but one of the things that's cool is that it also shows what the wind said to him, because it didn't show us
Right.
what the wind said to him. And the wind's like, you are the dragon.
Mm-hmm.
right.
Yeah.
So after all of this, he goes to Min's bar to try to get
Yep.
some confirmation about what he believes. He believes himself to be the dragon at this point. And
Yeah.
she gives him, I guess, some vague confirmations of that. But yeah, she basically just tells him that he knows who he is, and
Yeah.
you know, kind of confirms it in a bit. So
Yeah, she does. And I was wishing that we
and then
would
she
get,
doesn't tell
like-
anybody else, which is weird. You know, she kind of kept
Yeah.
that close to her chest.
Well,
But she
that
says,
is
"I know
actually
who you
true.
are."
Min is like that.
Yeah.
But Min is like that. in the show,
Yeah,
like
that's
in the
true.
book, she'll often tell people what she sees over them and keeps it private. But one of the things I think would have been, again, I think Min's fine and the visions are fine, but like I think it would have been quite cool if we'd had some of Min's early viewings actually used. Like, you know, it shows her like seeing Rand holding the baby and stuff.
Mhm.
But like, you know, Egwene's part of it. You're in love with her. She loves you too, but she's not for you or you for her. Not the way you both want. I think that's really interesting because when I read the books, I thought that it was going to follow the trope. So I thought like Rand ends up with Egwene, right? Because at the beginning it
Mhm.
looks like Rand ends up with Egwene, and you get to Berylon and she says, "You two, you're in love, but she's not for you, and neither her
Yeah.
you for her." And so like,
Oh.
oh, it's not going to happen. So what is going to happen? And that suddenly opens
And-
up like a whole theory crafting, and Rand's like kicking against the prophecy, which is, you know, that's a trope, isn't it? When you kick against the prophecy, but of course it comes true anyway.
And one of the things that Min says is that I see three beautiful women, right?
Yeah.
When he goes to talk to her later on, and we
Yeah.
assume that especially the non-book readers are assuming at this point that he's just going to end up with Egwene. And I wonder how they're going to address that exactly on the show. I hope they execute that well. That'll
Yeah.
be interesting the way they do it.
It will, and I totally agree with that, Andrew. I really think you're absolutely right there. I think it's a crucial thing to get right, and obviously, I think at the moment, the fans think that one of those women is Egwene. So there's going to be, they think there's going to be some challenges for him. That like
And
gonna
there's
kind of
no,
challenge
and
their
they're
relationship, but
definitely
the pure
not.
love.
They're definitely not even subtly hinting that one of them is going to be Min. Like non-book readers are definitely. I wonder if
No.
non-book readers are entertaining that at all, because they're definitely not acknowledging that yet.
Right.
No, I think I don't think anyone will have seen that at this point.
Yeah.
I don't think many
only-
people will realize that Min's going to be a main character. They'll be like, she's here for the fortune teller episode, and we'll never see her again.
Yeah, yeah. kind of like with Tom, right?
Yeah. But
Yeah, I know,
it's
but I
gonna
know
be
that
fun,
some
and
people are even like non-book readers are like wishing Tom to return.
Oh,
Or,
that's good.
Mick Jagger,
Yeah,
medieval Mick Jagger.
medieval Mick Jagger.
But yeah, I was gonna say, I guess one of the most important interactions that they have between Min and Rand in the scene is Min explains the first time she ever saw a vision, and the vision she describes is because the person she saw was Tam in Tarvalin, and she saw a vision that Tam had basically encountered the baby on Dragon Mount and rescued it. And then the baby went on to a village and grew up in a wooden house and herded sheep. So she's basically kind of confirming his origin story right to his face.
Hey, no one calls Rand sheep herder. I just noticed that.
Or woolhead. We haven't gotten the woolhead, and we haven't got. Well, that's what actually Min is the one that actually called him those things the most.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So we'll have to see if she does that.
Let's hope it happens. They gave us Blood and Bloody Ashes, so I think we'll probably get it. I don't think it'll be. They'll try and avoid how tropey it is in the books and how.
You guys know I'm not a fan of the fake swearing anyway. So, but I wouldn't mind that being in there just because it happens in the books. I wouldn't mind that at all.
So what are you gonna think about Uno then?
They'll mention it. Yeah, well,
I think Uno will be cool.
He just didn't.
Yeah.
And
he's gonna do a lot of fantasy swearing. Yeah.
Well, I think Uno might do some real swearing from Andrew's point of view as well. I really do. I think
they're doing that in the show anyway.
Yep. I think Uno will be the one who drops some 4-letter words.
F-bombs?
Put it that way.
Probably.
Well, SHITs, I would imagine as well.
Well, Matt has already said shit, and I think Rand said it
Yeah.
once as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I think that they're clearly establishing that that's the kind of swearing that they're going to use. And I think Uno, it makes sense, right? He's not just swearing for the sake of it. That is his character. Like that is the way he speaks. And so using
Mhm.
swearing with Uno makes absolute sense. And it is very much in keeping with the books. And it's in keeping with his plot line and his character arcs. So like that's what I say. What I don't like is when people just chuck stuff in for kicks. Like it should
Mhm.
do something. It should mean something. It should create something. And
Yeah, yeah,
and that,
and
and I think
it still will
with Uno it should.
because it's not like they made other characters go around swearing all over the place, so it
Yeah,
can still work.
exactly.
Sure.
And he could still have that impact, right? That everyone's like, "Oh, Uno, come on,
Mhm.
man," because you're like all the freaking time. And like when he gets the arc with Elaine, where he's like trying to behave himself because he's with a princess, and then she's like, "Hey, Uno, teach me some swear words. You know all the good ones." I think
Yeah.
that's a cool. That'll be a cool little like comedy arc on the side of some show while they get cool action sequences on the side. And so like stuff like that I think is great. And they've introduced Uno, so they clearly intend to use him. And I think that's great. I
Yeah.
think he's a fan favorite. And I know some people who every single sentence they swear. Like literally. They're not swearing at you, they just swear all the time. And
Like
so
me.
Uno's a shout out to those people, right? And they're gonna love that. They're gonna be that's me in the show.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway. Let's pull this through.
I have a theory. I
Let's hear
want
it.
to hear what you guys think about this. So, Rand, I believe we would have to assume that Rand has been thinking about himself possibly being the dragon since being talked to by Ma Shin. Do you
Well,
think
yeah,
it's possible that Rand caused that triangle drama to build distance from everybody else?
on
That
purpose.
seems unlikely to me, but I don't know.
He does it in book 2.
Does
Yeah,
it?
Rand,
Oh, okay.
Rand, not with.
As
not
soon
with
as Rand
this.
finds out, he does it
Yeah.
in book 2. So I'm
Yeah, he doesn't.
wondering if this is
I
it
know.
right here.
Just to clarify,
Maybe.
he doesn't use the love triangle to do it, but he deliberately creates what Dusty's saying is he deliberately creates distance. He deliberately pushes everyone away. And so I can totally see him deliberately pushing people away. But if he is going to do that, Dusty, and if they're trying to suggest he was doing that at that point, seems odd that he then went
Egwene.
and boned Egwene. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I know you've
maybe
got a bone because
his
it's an
other
Amazon
head.
product.
Yeah, maybe his other head just can take it. Or he had to get his last what do you want to call it?
Release.
Booty?
Release. Yeah, he had to do the old in and out at least once before possible death.
He had the duty to get some booty.
And but you can see that he's struggling with himself, and then he goes to Min for confirmation. It's clearly been in his head. He knows some weird stuff's gone on. How did I break down that door? How did I manage to get rid of that Trolloc? Was that me? What was my dad saying? Am I this weird kid who am I not from the Two Rivers? Am I special? And everyone's been thinking, is it me to an extent? And he's like, is all this adding up to it's me? And then he goes to Min, and what Min says seems to just confirm it, doesn't it? He's like, oh, it
Right.
definitely is me. And so then
So that's why my theory. I don't know what you guys thought about that.
I don't think
be the case,
that
I
could
guess.
totally be valid. I do think him boning Egwene undermines it slightly because that's not exactly pushing her away. It's the kind of opposite.
True.
But hey, he's a teenager. Well, he's 20 or whatever. I can totally see him like wanting with one brain to push people away, and then when she comes to him and she's willing to make up, and he's like, "Oh man." I can see that. I can totally see that. But anyway, I think that's very much in keeping with his character, Dusty, and I think that could be a good shot. But yeah.
Yeah. So one thing I forgot to mention, like earlier, Moraine basically tasked them say, hey,
Yep.
this is going to be a dangerous thing, and if you guys aren't the dragon, you might die. So you need to decide for your own whether
Mhm.
you're
Yep.
going to come on this mission. So the next scene we see the gathering. Funny
Yep.
thing is like Egwene goes in Nynaeve's room, she's not there. And she's like, "Yeah, what have you been doing?"
Nothing. Oh, nothing all night, eh?
Tristram looks like he didn't like that.
No, no,
What have
no. Because the
you
thing
been
is,
doing?
no. If it happens this way, that's completely normal. It's one of the reasons Nynaeve would not have done it this way, because Nynaeve doesn't want to be embarrassed, and Nynaeve is embarrassed because they suddenly have Nynaeve acting like Nynaeve would act, because Nynaeve is embarrassed that she's had sex with someone like just like that, and because that isn't her style. And so the fact is, she's acted out of character, and now her character has come back to herself and is embarrassed by it. Anyway, wouldn't have happened to the
That's fair.
Nynaeve in the book, but now it has happened. It makes complete sense, and Egwene would totally call her on it. She would totally go,
Right.
"Oh, yeah, you're looking at me, going, hey, apprentice, you should give up your boyfriend." And there's you shagging the guy next door. Interesting. And
Yeah.
you know he
Right.
belongs to Moraine, right? Right? Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes complete
we
sense.
get
If the other
the
scene happens, this scene happens.
Right.
yeah. Well, Nynaeve apologizes for basically making things worse because she's the one who was like, "Oh, you guys have been fighting over," so she apologizes, and then Perrin walks in, like looking
Yep.
embarrassed.
But then they move on. Thank goodness.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Immediately, it's like they talk about
So
what
we
would
talk
they
about
decide
death
regarding.
instead of like love triangles. And they're like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably more important.
Yeah. So Egwene, she's the
Says,
first
I'm
one
going,
to say that she wants to go.
Right.
which is
Um,
completely in character.
Yeah.
yeah, and then Perrin just kind of nods in agreement. And Nynaeve mulls over a bit. She doesn't actually say anything,
Yeah.
but they're like, "Where's Rand?" And
Yeah.
Perrin's like, "Oh, I thought he was with you." And you see Rand walking towards the doorway
Yeah.
and knocking. And then when you
Yep.
get to the cut of the who opened the door, who was there, it happens to be Lan trying to gather them.
Right.
So next thing you see is Rand is actually knocking on Moraine's door,
Yeah.
and he tells her, "I think I'm the dragon."
Mm-hmm.
And simultaneously, because these aren't simultaneous, like these aren't happening at the same time, but back at Lan tells them like Moraine's masked the bond, and then they're like, "What's going on?" And he says that she's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And they all put two and two together, and Egwene's like, "Rand." And next thing we see is Moraine and Rand approaching the Blight. What did you guys think of the Blight? Uh-oh. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, you're cutting
Oh,
out.
the
man.
blight.
No,
I like the blight. I thought it was. I know it was different from the way it was in the books, but I think they got the right feel, and they probably didn't want to make it feel like Fangorn Forest in Lord of the Rings, so they wanted to distinguish it a bit, which I think makes sense.
Yeah, I'm expecting like
Yeah.
possibly different parts of the Blight looking different. I hope they see Malkir at some point, like the ruins of Malkir. I'd love to see that. But I was
think that's less
pretty
likely
happy.
now that they've had the conversation. Now that they've had the conversation
Yeah,
in the
it's
bedroom
probably not going to
about,
happen.
I think I would find that very unlikely, Dusty. I think that they're not going to take extra time to see the Topple Towers. Maybe in another season.
Well, it's a different
next time we'll
dynamic
have-
too, because it's now a chase dynamic.
Mhm.
So you have Rand and Moraine going off by themselves, and then everybody else trying to find them and get to them.
Yeah, that's obviously different from the books too. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I just. I don't have a problem with that. I just hope it works out
Yeah.
well. What do you guys think about that?
I don't think
I'm gonna
they'll
wait and
chase.
see.
I think the whole point, the whole stupid. If anyone goes to the eye of the world who isn't the dragon, they die. I
Yeah,
think they're going to use that because that just has no point. It's just stupid. Anyway,
You mean they're gonna treat that as that's true?
yeah, I think they are going to treat that as true, and then so they're going to use that for the reason to split the party. So
I get
that
the. I
means
get the. Like, I get why Rand's character, given that prophecy, would do that
does
and
what he
sneak
does.
away just with Moraine because he figures, oh, I'm the dragon, so I might as well just go with Moraine so I can sacrifice myself so the other four of them don't have to die.
And he might not die because he is the dragon. So he's not even sacrificing himself. He's like it would just be dying.
He's
for
just
no
gonna
reason
go there to
because they're not the
become more
dragon.
powerful.
Yeah, so I think he and Moraine will go to the Eye, and they will deal with the Forsaken. And I think the others will not go to the Eye. I don't think it will be a chase. I think they
I
will
think they're gonna catch
accept.
up.
I don't know. I don't think they will. I think they might play it that they're going to deal with that, and then they leave the other four to fight at Tarwin's Gap. And I think that's why we're gonna. I think that way we can have all of them at Tarwin's Gap and have the cool fight scene that they want for the climax of the show, and then that will happen parallel with the one-on-one battle that will happen with a Forsaken at the Eye of the World. So you're going to have that sort of narrow view of a Forsaken at the Eye of the World versus Rand, and Rand learning about channeling for the first time, and then you'll have the army at Tarwin's Gap. The army will go well, and then they'll start to be beaten. Rand will show up with Moraine and turn the tide, and they'll probably make that. I don't know if they're going to do that as like Rand is now known as the dragon, like they did at Falme at the end of book 2. I don't know if he's accelerating that quickly, but after what he's done with Nynaeve and Lan, he's clearly 7 books in. So he can easily put in part of book 3 and just say, like, he announces himself as the dragon now, and he can end series 2 with him pulling Kalandor rather than him fighting in the sky at Falme.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah. Sorry guys, but I gotta go right away because I'm about to have a bit of an early Christmas celebration type of thing. So,
but tell us your final thoughts before you go, man.
Yeah, but I like this episode. It's not my favorite episode. My favorite episode is still episode 4 because I love all the epic magic battles. But I like most of it. Like most of what they did. I don't like the love triangle stuff. But I like everything else basically. Like I don't have a problem with the Lan and Nynaeve thing for the most part. Even though I see your point, Tristram, about that, I really do.
I'm glad you don't feel that way, man. I'm glad you're happier than I am. I want to be like you.
Yeah, and I like the way they did the Blight and Machin Shin and the Ways and finally showing that Rand definitely is the Dragon Reborn. So yeah, I think it's a good episode overall, and I'm really excited to watch episode 8.
Do you think Min looks good? Are you?
I like Min like Min for the most part. I guess they kind of get the vibe of her in the books. I kind of remember her in the books as being a little bit more like tomboyish, and then kind of like falling all over Rand. Not this early for sure, but at some point. So that'll be interesting to see.
It's definitely second book. You're gonna start to see that.
You're talking my language, Andrew. That's exactly the kind of thing I said. More boyish, but also like more like innocent. But like anyway, I couldn't agree more. Like, and she's okay, but she didn't wow me. And a lot of them have wowed me with their acting performances. So we'll see. She has a long way that she can go, and she could really grow on me in future ones. But there's nothing wrong with her.
I think they're gonna try to keep all the casting information for the Forsaken secret.
That would be cool.
That's
Well,
great.
we should have known who Lanfear was already. If Flash
Not
Celine or
necessarily,
however they're gonna play that.
but Celine doesn't rock up in this book, so it's fine.
That's
No,
true.
we've no casting for the second season already. So we have Elaine, we have
Okay. Anyway,
a couple other Shinarans like
Andrew, you
Masima.
go, man. You go.
All right. Yeah, thanks for talking, guys. Sorry to only join for like a third of this or so, but always great to talk with you guys, and looking forward to talking about episode 8 next week. And check out my channel, Mindgasms, where Dusty and Shizan and I talked about Saving Private Ryan yesterday. And we're going to talk about Stephen King's Dark Tower series book 2 next weekend.
Well, I don't know if I'll be talking next weekend because you guys probably don't realize, but it's freaking Christmas.
Oh yeah,
man, I completely forgot.
Like I didn't.
Yeah,
I've got young
we
kids,
can.
so I'm not meeting next
yeah.
weekend, guys. Not a chance.
Yeah, we can.
okay.
We
Yeah,
can
we can wait
postpone
another
it.
week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
give
can
me
wait
another
after
week,
that.
please.
All right. Anyway, thanks for talking, guys. Have a good night.
Merry Christmas.
All right, you take it easy, man.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, First Ram. Merry Christmas, guys.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. Adios.
Adios.
Right, bye-bye. So yeah, we're pretty much almost done here with this episode.
Yep.
The Blight. I'm thirsty for more Blight, and I'm hoping that's just kind of the beginning.
Very beginning.
Yeah, that's the beginning, and there's
Yeah.
going to be like different parts, and I really want to see what the Eye of the World's going to look like. I've seen the teaser for the next episode, so there's definitely going to be a battle scene at Tarn's Gap and at Aldara. It looks like, because I know in the teaser you saw people shooting like bows from the walls, so. Yeah. My guess is that they get close to the city.
I'm thinking that they'll, because in the books, they do split them up, right? They don't all get to the confrontation at the Eye of the World. And I think they're going to use this, would we go and support them? Of course we would. If it's a matter of bravery and risking our lives, we would do it. But now they know for sure he's the dragon and Moiraine's taken him. And so he's the one who can survive and he's with the best person to do that we won't do that. And instead we'll do what we're useful for, which is to help the fight here. And I think that's the way they'll show us the battle, because obviously in the books, it's another battle that we miss almost all of it because we're with Rand at the Eye. And what Rafe's shown us is whenever there's a cool battle that we don't see in the books, he's popping that in. And so I think we're going to see the battle in detail. Like you say, we've already seen clips that suggest that. And I think they're going to be losing the battle, which is why they're going to fall back to Fal Dara. And then I think that they will have Rand turn up with Moiraine and partially turn the tide. And like I say, they might even use that as the Rand is the dragon moment where he is partially announced, a little bit like the battle at Falme does in the series. The reason I think that is, again, just because of the truncation of the series, and because when he does announce himself at the end of book 2, some of the first people to swear to him are people like Uno, like the Shinarians who are with them, and they can do that here very effectively. The only thing that's and it doesn't make it wasn't a good thing in the book. Like in the book, Rand turns up and blows up the whole army and no one notices. They're like, the army was shut down, and it was like everyone saw something a little different, and there was like a big flash and everyone died, and no one realizes it was him somehow. And that always seemed really like, Robert Jordan, did you not think this through, kind of thing? Whereas usually that isn't how I feel about Jordan's writing. And so I imagine Rafe's going to do it a bit differently. I don't think Rand's just going to turn up and drop a nuke on an entire army and no one's going to notice. I genuinely just don't believe they're going to go with that ending.
I found the ending of Eye of the World a bit confusing, for me at least to mentally visualize.
Yeah, I think Rafe's going to do it better. I genuinely do think Rafe's going to do it better.
Well, I hope so. Like I've seen some leaks, so I just won't talk about what I've seen.
All right. Well, we'll
But it
see.
seems different. It seems like there's going to be magic, a lot of magic involved from what I've seen.
Yeah. And the thing is, we know that Moraine is like not holding back with the magic, and like the Eye of the World, if it ends up being a repository of the clean one power male side, then it should result in that. But I don't think it will be, because I don't think they want to go there, because it doesn't really make sense.
All
And
right,
now they've
and we
said it
both
like
think there's not going to be a Green Man.
I don't think they'll do a Green Man, and I think they'll only do one Forsaken as well. And
Yeah, I
you
think
said
it's
that
just going
as
to be
well.
one. Yeah,
Yeah, it makes sense.
we're going to have
And
to
then
have one at least. But I
and
think it's just going to be one.
yeah, and I think whoever that one is, I think they will die and be reborn as Arangar, not as Osangar. Just
Okay.
throwing that out.
I don't have no idea who's going to show up, but if any of the pair shows up, it's just going to be Agenor.
Well, either name that they give them, they're going to fulfill both roles.
Yeah, because I think the Shiva is
Agenor's
just
the more
not gonna be. I don't think the Shiva's gonna be an actual in
Neve
disguise,
character.
like in disguise Forsaken. They're probably just gonna downgrade him to a disgruntled Ashaman
Yeah, to
and just
Dreadlord.
yeah. So we'll
He can
see. We'll
do,
see what happens.
yeah, the Shiva can do everything he does without being a Forsaken, Carney.
Right.
Like
Right.
he can fulfill his entire role in the plot without needing to be a Forsaken.
Yeah, that's what I believe. But we do need, in order to get that kind of weird, woman
Yeah, I
using
do know
Sidar or
the
Sidene, you
male
kind
side
of
of the
have to have
power.
that. Yeah.
I agree. And that's what I think will happen. And Agenor is more interesting than Balthamel because he's the creator of the Trollocs and the Shadowspawn.
Right.
So
He has a more
he's more
important
interesting.
role among like
All
the
right.
lore of the world.
So favorite points of the episode for you? What did you love about it?
Definitely the cold open. There's no question. That
Yeah.
cold open was amazing. I also liked the ways. And
Yep.
the dragon reveal I thought was done very well. I really like
Yep.
how they revealed the dragon and they tied in all the other events that we suspected, except for the one in the ways. I didn't suspect that at all. I totally thought it was Egwene who did that. But
Yeah,
I
well,
love how they tied all that in, and then they even added stuff that we expected to see in the first episode, but they tacked it on into that. Like he was holding that close to his chest, and they didn't let the audience see that until now. And
and
it also
Rand,
included the helmet reveal where Tam pulls off the helmet. Because I know we knew who it was, but it's not
yeah,
sure a non book reader would have made that connection without seeing his face.
yeah. And I like that because Rand does not tell anyone about the fever dreams for like a long time. Like we know in the book because we're in Rand's head when the fever dreams happen in like chapter 2 or whatever it is. But like he doesn't actually tell anyone about it in the books for a long time. And so you're like, actually it makes sense that he's known this but not brought it up because it's been worrying him. And now you see it's been eating at him, and now he realizes this pieces together and makes sense. And maybe it wasn't just mad ramblings. And I think that's really cool. I think that was well handled. Well done. The cold open is also my favorite part of this episode. It's just so amazing. I think it's done really, really well. But I really like, apart from the fact that they, for some reason, decided to go and immediately have them banging. I really like the Nynaeve and Lan progression. I really liked him going and speaking to Malkiri and her finding out about Malkir. I love that. I love the way they did it. I love how it made Lan more human, but in a way that makes sense to me. I love how it was like Lan saying goodbye to his people, but also that it established I was the one who brought Lan out as a child. So it's someone who would be more human, more willing to tell her. it allows us to see little things like there's other people who wear the Hadori and the Kaisan dot, which of course one day she will wear when she later on in the series she chooses to dress herself and adorn herself as a Malkieri woman when she later on. And so it's cool to see that Heritage loved that, really, really loved that. I just wish they'd ended it at the door. I just think that would have then allowed their relationship to progress more gradually. And I love gradual things. I love how they've done Rand's power gradually. I love how they're establishing Perrin's powers gradually. And I think I'm always a fan of gradual over instantaneous. And I think that's one of the ways the show is going to challenge me, because the show must be more instantaneous compared to a 14-book, 1,000-page-a-book series.
All right, I'm optimistic. You know.
Yeah, it's done a good job so far.
We'll see how episode. So now that I've told you that Brandon Sanderson thought episode 6 was his favorite, does this seem odd to you?
A little, yeah. Yeah.
I was like, why is that your favorite, Brandon Sanderson?
Yeah, I mean, like, I know that one of the things that Brandon's favorite character is Perrin, and I think episode 6 had quite a bit of Perrin and Perrin establishing his bond with the wolves and things like that.
Well, so that was episode 5.
Was that 5? Yeah. I thought 5 was. Oh yeah, so 6 is the Flame of Tar Valon, right?
Yeah, so that's where Perrin is relegated to sleeping in a bed.
Yeah, the trial. Maybe it's because it was the politics of the tower. Because I know he quite likes the politics of the tower. But yeah, it did surprise me that would be his favorite. I'm surprised it wasn't 4 or 5, both of which I think in many ways are stronger episodes.
All right.
I don't like. Which, hang on, unless actually was 5 the depressed warder.
5 was the warder killing himself.
The warder one is my least. Yeah.
That's your least favorite.
That established something that was in. Yeah, that established something important, but it is my least favorite episode.
Okay.
Because I wasn't in. Well, no, not because land screen. Because the thing, if I'm honest, I just didn't care. Like, it was all portrayed as if I cared a lot about this warder, but I didn't
yet care.
I couldn't make myself care enough. And like, I'm trying to imagine the emotions that are making someone like Lan feel this way, and I'm just not feeling it. And I wasn't that. We weren't invested enough in that warder or his Aes Sedai, to care enough, and so it didn't resonate with me. Whereas the scenes with Nynaeve and Lan are scenes that resonate and mean more to me, and I'm like, when Mat doesn't walk into the ways, I'm gutted. I'm like, oh no, I really like that character, and now he's just gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, I'm far more devastated by that than I am that this guy called Steppen is gone, who I've only literally just met, and he's already clearly so depressed and wants to die, and then he does. I'm like, and he's the one who kind of caused the problem as well in his berserker rage. So he's like, yeah, it's sad, but yeah. And so when a whole episode relies on that being the emotional moment, and it doesn't, I don't care, then that episode falls flat.
Mm. Well,
for people who
Brother Book was introduced though in episode 5.
Brother Book is amazing. Everyone's happy with Brother Book. You don't. I don't even know what Arby's is, and now I want one because of.
It's a commercial, and the announcer of the commercial has a very deep voice.
And apparently it's something to do with meat, so meat's good.
Yeah, anyway. It's like a smokehouse, like fast food chain.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
out of the, what would you rank this? Like second best, third best of the season so far?
the problem is I was doing so well at the beginning of this series, and then like the more and more they keep adding in more scenes and not touching on some of the quality content that is in the books. Like
Mm-hmm.
my mega fanness is hurting me and blocking me from enjoying things as much as I should. I thought this was a great episode, but I got unreasonably annoyed with the love triangle, Lan and Nynaeve jumping straight to sex. It and because of that, that affected me out of proportion to the impact of those two incidents. Um, so I did not enjoy it as much as I should have, as much as I would have if I was not so invested in things like the love relationships of the Wheel of Time, which I am invested in. Um, I would say I enjoyed 4 more. I really like episode 1. I know some people find episode 1 slow. I really like episode 1. Um, I really like the way it established the characters. I really like Nynaeve and Matt in that episode. I really like Winter's Night Fight. I think it's freaking awesome. And I really liked episode, I think it's either 3 or 4. I love 4 when Nynaeve goes like superpowered.
Berserk. Yeah.
But the one with the dark friend in is very clever, and I think that's episode 3
3.
where Tom introduced. I think
Mhm.
3 and 4 are like my favorites. I like 1, and I liked this one. I love the cold open, and I like the other one, the one just before this one, which shows all the intrigue in the tower and the different Ajas. So that was really
Mhm.
clever as well. But you see, I would have liked 6 a lot more if it hadn't been like, yeah, Swan and Moraine are sleeping together, and that made me worry about the Tom relationship not happening, and that I'm just like, oh, and so those kind of things undermined my enjoyment of like 6 and 7. I think 5's my least favorite, the sad water episode.
Mhm.
2 was okay, but I wanted 2 to be better than it was. But
Mhm.
I think as an episode I enjoyed 2 more than this episode because I got less annoyed with it. But, no, I just need my problems are my own, Dusty. They're not caused by the show. They're caused by me being too attached
Your
to
reaction
things,
to it.
and yeah, and the thing is, I really, really hope that Rafe gives me a really good Nynaeve Lan love story and that it's drawn out and enjoyable, even though its sex is on this end of it. I still hope
Mhm.
that I still hope he takes his time and that their relationship still can grow. Because normally in a show, part of the relationship growing is they move to kissing and then they move to sex. And, or they move to kissing, then they move to properly dating, then they move to marrying, then they move to that, or whatever it is, or sex then moves to marriage, or whatever it is. But the problem is that they've like skipped kissing entirely and just
Mhm.
gone like we were like talking as if we were kind of a wary, a little bit of banter, but like very much at odds, like because we're very suspicious because I represent the Aes Sedai and you don't.
Mhm.
And now we've slept together. Like, yeah. So I genuinely I just want to make sure he has a different way of showing their relationship grow. And there's other ways of showing that. So I hope he does a good job with it. I've really enjoyed what he's done with their relationship till now. I really enjoyed it. Loved it. Even though it's not in the books, it represents what's in the books. The bit of banter, her eating at their fire, the tracking thing, the being prepared to kill him, but then having him be able to fight and show his skill. The bit with the Valkyrie, loved all of that. Brilliant. Love both the actors. I think the actors on the whole are really good and representative of their characters. The problem is I just care about those two characters a bit too much. I'm very, very invested.
I'll say this though, there's a possibility that Lan and Nynaeve did not sleep together because there's no post-coital scene.
Well, I think that's very, very unlikely considering she's been there all night and she is
Hey, they could have been talking.
Yeah.
Because we don't know. Like, we know they kissed, but the whole time she was fully dressed. Even after the kissing scene.
Yeah, but then she stays the night in his bed. She's woken up. He's still asleep and clearly at least shirtless, probably naked. And she is rebraiding her hair. So, like.
But she was fully clothed.
She is fully clothed again. And Nynaeve is obviously very modest as well. I'd like to believe it, man, but I think we didn't see Rand banging Egwene, but it's very clear they've been doing so.
Yeah, but they were clearly like half dressed.
Yeah, which they didn't do with Egwene. That's true. But I don't think anyone believes that she lay next to him fully clothed all night while they fell asleep and then woke up the next day and walked away. I think that's very, 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 very unlikely. But anyway, so I think my order is probably 4, 3, 1, 6, 2, 7, 5.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to 8 blowing my mind.
I'll say this. 7 is like right now my second favorite.
Really? Because you love the cold open so much? Because you enjoyed the ways? Seeing the
like I said, I watched that cold open like 10 times in a row.
It's good.
And I used that to persuade someone to watch the show. Demonstrating the quality of material.
The reveal of the dragon was good. The reveal of the
dragon. Yeah, it was done well. So second favorite so far.
That's cool.
Yeah, I guess I just wasn't as bothered by the things that you were bothered. Like I understood the differences, but I'm taking like a wait and see approach to see how they resolve these things.
Yeah. And they're not big problems. They're tiny problems. And they're problems only if you want the rest of their storyline to happen. If they do a different storyline, it's not even relevant, right? If they marry them in series 2, it's not as big a faff. Like if they just accelerate all the storylines, it's just for someone like me who was hoping, that's one of the things he was hoping for in the series, it feels like that hope is dashed. And so that has a disproportionate reaction. I'm fully aware that that's not fair criticism of the show. It's just an emotional reaction watcher. But I won't be the only one. There'll be salty fans who will have felt what I felt to this particular week. But I'm enjoying the show, and there's a lot that's to be praised. And I think the people who aren't too dedicated to the books are enjoying it even more. And
right.
Yep.
And I haven't finished this episode's Everyday Negroes reaction, so I'll have to finish that.
You need to. Did you not see where they discover he's the dragon?
No, I got probably halfway through it.
All right, you definitely need to watch it. Those guys are great. Plug for their channel. They're awesome. If any of you want to look at something, just fun reactions to the Wheel of Time, Everyday Negroes is a great channel to watch for that. I can vouch for it being entertaining.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely hilarious. I love seeing non-book readers' reactions to things. It just gets me excited that there's this type of positive reaction to the show.
Absolutely. And like they don't think much of Rand, right? Because like
No,
they're like
like,
he's like
well, they call him brother
soft.
sensitive.
Yeah, brother sensitive. And so like it's interesting because they're like they're much more up for like Perrin or Lan or like they love wisdom. Um, and so
Oh yeah, they
just
just call her wisdom.
watching a brother book and watching like when someone disrespects brother book, you do not want to mess. They're like, hey, do not disrespect brother book. And I just love those guys, and yeah, and enjoy watching that and enjoying their commentary on Rand. Anyway, but yeah, it's 3 o'clock, dude. So we better call it.
All right, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up for today. Join us in 2 weeks for the finale, and then we can start getting back into our regular stuff that we used to do. I know Andrew wants to talk about some of the short stories and novellas from Arcanum Unbounded by Brandon Sanderson.
Yep.
And then I still got Winter's Heart on my plate to talk about.
Love Winter's
And
Heart.
I'm already ready for the first third of the book. So that'll be coming along too.
I love
All
Winter's
right,
Heart.
so
One of my favorites. Can't wait. Can't wait for Winter's Heart 2022. Let's do it.
yeah. So join us in about 2 weeks, and that's when we're going to be covering episode the finale of the season. I will not appear on anything next week due to the holidays. So yeah, it's going to be 2 weeks before you see me run any type of live stream.
Yep.
All right, so everybody have a great night. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, hit that bell, and share it with others, and tell people how awesome this show is. Because I want Amazon to make season 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8. And I even want them to make the more episodes per season. Hopefully, I know there was like a petition that people were passing around to have to at least extend this to 10, if not 12 episodes. But hopefully, this is like a huge success for them, and they'll see that hey, maybe pouring a little bit more money and resources into this series may be beneficial for us. So hopefully they see the light, and we can get some 10-episode seasons at least.
Yeah.
All right. So take it easy. Join us after the holidays, and you have a great day today. Good night, people.
Good night, and Merry Christmas.
Yep, for sure. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year.